Hello, everyone. Noah here. Welcome to the Sweet Space podcast. And here I have a recurring guest from the last episode, Kevin, also known as American Elephant, also known as Elephant Power Productions. I'm not gonna, preamble this too much. I'm gonna let Kevin introduce himself because, you probably already know him from the last episode, so we don't have to say too much on this. But if you haven't met him yet, or if you just want to meet him again, then sure, whatever. Why not? I'm going to unmute you now, Kevin. Feel free to say whatever you want to say.
All right, yeah, hello, I'm Kevin. I'm currently, right now, I'm a 2D animator. I make video essays and animations for my channel, and I'm also a very big fan of comic books and comic book media, which is very fitting for today, given the topic we'll be going over. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm always down for talking about pieces of superhero media, and this one especially is very important today because we are going to be talking about, if it's okay with me introducing the
It is.
subject, we are going to be discussing, finally, the James Gunn directed Superman movie. It is finally out. It is finally here. If was any doubt about it beforehand, the DCU, the new one, for real this time, has officially begun. And in my opinion at least, to get things going, it is off to a fantastic start.
And I
So,
agree.
yeah, I'd give this movie, at the very least, I consider this movie like a strong, and some people might say recency bias, but F them. I give this movie a 9 out of 10. This is easily one of my new favorite comic book movies. I think it's only going to get better with age, and I
Honestly,
am,
I'm thinking 9 out of 10 too. At least like bordering on 9. Like it's definitely
nice.
an 8. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
9 is a very hefty ranking, but I think this film might deserve it. I'll have to think about it a little more. And by the way, number rankings are just for fun. Like they're
Yeah,
definitely not the most complete way of like talking about a movie, which is what the rest of this podcast is for.
right.
People are gonna be like, why are 2 episodes of your podcast in a row dedicated to superhero movies? Like it's a common theme now. Guys, it's okay because
Yeah.
this time it's DC. We were talking about Marvel last time.
Yes, exactly. Marvel and its weird state was the last subject. This time we're focusing on a single DC movie. So there's contrast on multiple fronts in terms of
This
continuity.
is true.
Anyway,
This is true. Yeah, and I mean, we're looking at the beginning of a new DC universe with this movie. And
yes.
I know there's other movies that are coming out. Um, I haven't looked into many of them because honestly, I'm just going to provide some background on this topic. Um, I do not really like DC movies, like by and large. Um, as
Yeah, that's fair.
like on the other hand, I do want to quickly clarify something. I don't read much comics. I have never read much comics. I think I've read maybe 1 or 2 comics in my entire lifetime. So I don't have like a comic basis for liking any of these movies. But I would generally consider myself a fan of MCU movies, which I cannot say for the old DCEU. Whereas like most Marvel movies, I'd say were like in the category of like fine, like good enough to great, even excellent sometimes. Um, like I could say I liked the majority of them. With DC, it's like I think I could name 5 DC movies I actually like. Out of those I remember anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's been ages since I saw Man of Steel. It's been ages since I saw any of those like earlier ones. But like
Mm.
I've talked about this with my dad as well. I can name. Let me actually quickly list off the DC movies I do like. Wonder Woman 2017 was pretty good. I don't like Gal Gadot, but that was a good movie. There's
Okay.
also Shazam. I like the first
Yeah.
one. Um,
Yes. Yeah,
Aquaman. I like the first Aquaman. I
same
never saw the
here.
second one. I never saw the second Shazam either. I did see Wonder Woman 84, which I hated.
Ah.
Uh, or at the very least, I really, really didn't like it.
Yeah.
Hatred is a very strong reaction from me that isn't really earned by a lot of media, even bad media. So like it's more accurate to just say I thought it was bad because,
Yeah.
um and then after that, see, that's three movies I've named so far. And then The Suicide Squad, also by James Gunn, is a good one. That's a banger, actually. I'd say that's like. Well, now I have to think about whether The Suicide Squad or Superman is my favorite DC movie. I don't know. I think The
Mm,
Suicide Squad maybe has the slight edge just because like I value so much of the artistic shit done in that movie. Not that there isn't that in Superman. It's just there's a specific
right.
flavor to the Suicide Squad that like really like speaks to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, the whole thing with the DC movies, it's my history with the DCEU has been very love and hate. I'll admit, I haven't seen every single DCEU film. I will say this, I'm actually checking right now. Okay, wait, yeah, I think I have seen like every I've technically seen every DCEU film except Man of Steel. That is the
That's
only
funny.
one I have
I have
not
seen
seen.
it. I just don't remember it because it was so long ago.
Interesting. But
And I'm
yeah,
gonna
it
be
was.
honest, I think if I rewatched it, my opinion would just be that is a fine or like decent movie. Because like here's the thing. Um I'm not like I'm not like ardently anti Snyder. I think sometimes he makes good movies. I think sometimes he has good directing. I actually quite liked Army of the Dead 4 years ago. I thought that was a fun time. I recognize that 300 is an acclaimed movie for a reason. I get it.
Yeah,
Like, he's not terrible. Like, he's definitely not always bad. It's just, however, though, I have seen some other stuff from him that I just can't stand. Like, Batman versus Superman was just not it. I'm sorry. I have not
yeah. I
seen his Justice League cut. I'm just going to believe that some of the stuff in that is awesome and just not watch it.
That's yeah. I as someone who has seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think it is a very. It's a movie with a lot of good going for it, but also a lot of like frustrating stuff. I think the stuff with like for example, like there are some things that work about the movie. For example, Steppenwolf is a big improvement. The villain is a big improvement from the theatrical Justice League cut. He's
Oh,
not
theatrical
perfect.
Justice League is garbage. That
Yeah,
is a horrendous movie. I know for a fact that Zack Snyder's is better, even though I haven't watched it. It's just
yeah,
like
and
you'd have to impress me to make it worse.
at the very least, I will say I have mixed feelings on Zack Snyder's Justice League. I will say, at the very least, the cyborg stuff in that movie was pretty much perfect. Like, there's one part where I'm like, okay, that could have been altered a little, but the rest of it was pretty great. Ray Fisher gave a good performance. It explored the character in a bit of a moody but interesting way. The effects were much better. The story was so much just very compelling. And yeah, it's honestly insane to me that apparently a lot of that ended up on the cutting room floor for Justice League. But given what we know now about like the Joss Whedon allegations and like his and apparently like the racism going on within certain
Yeah,
higher ups at
it's
the time, it's
yeah,
very
it's really
disappointing.
yeah, it's really annoying and like and upsetting like how badly Ray Fisher was, the hand he was dealt by that whole industry and the company. It's like Warner Bros has a long
Yeah.
history of shit like that. And I mean, I'm sure it's not all that much better considering David Zaslav is now in charge and he's
Yeah.
fucking firing off tax write-offs like a Gatling gun, like straight up deleting movies from existence, which I'm just going to say right now, that's fucking vile. Like I'm
Yeah.
not going to pull my
Yeah.
punches. Like I hate this guy.
Yeah, he's David Zaslav is one of those few corporate entities where everybody can agree, like, oh yeah, this guy fucking sucks, and it's just like, it. I'm still like, it's bad enough to be like, a stupid corporate CEO who doesn't see the value in certain projects. He has made a forever enemy out of me now for both canceling the Batgirl movie, which was completed and filmed and ready to be released, but then they just said, nope, we're not going to release it. We're even going to destroy it and have theater like funeral screenings for it for the people that worked on it. Like, mind you, there were people at the company who were saying like Batgirl would have tanked DC's reputation. I think it would have really killed DC. And I'm over here like, guys, you made a Suicide Squad movie that got just as bad, if not worse, reviews than Batman versus Superman in the same year. And Wonder Woman
DC has
84.
survived worse, like way
Yeah,
worse.
DC has survived worse. And you cannot convince me that a Batgirl movie starring a great actress from In the Heights in the role and Brendan fucking Fraser as the villain Firefly, directed by the duo behind Bad Boys for Life and Miss Marvel, there is no way you can convince me this was the worst DC thing ever. Like, are you shitting me?
Yeah,
I
it's
refuse.
frustrating, and I genuinely hope that someone still has a copy of that movie somewhere.
I hope so too. And
And
if that wasn't
and
bad enough,
I'm not encouraging leaking movies that are owned by IP, but I'm not encouraging it.
yeah, same here. And if that wasn't bad enough, David Zaslav was also the guy spearheading everything when it turns out that, a shit ton of animated stuff was removed from HBO Max for no good reason, with, some directors of those animated shows not even being told they were removed from HBO Max by anyone officially and didn't find out until people hit them up on Twitter. So, yeah, point is, David Zaslav
Yeah.
sucks. And I got a lot of beef with him, especially as somebody who is a fan of Infinity Train. But back to DC. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
I mean, at
DC,
least DC itself, like, is in good hands with James Gunn and Peter
yes,
Safran. At least in my opinion. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like,
right.
obviously, no one in
I'm,
a corporate role can be like perfect, but like, I'm just
yeah,
saying,
for sure.
creatively, it seems that there's a good direction going on, just
Absolutely.
with this specific movie and like the vision it has. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I did want to briefly touch back on again with the DCEU because I think it actually serves as like a good segue into discussing why I think Superman works so well. With the DCEU, I think the problem in hindsight was making. Now, listen, again, I don't hate Zack Snyder. I don't think he's an incompetent filmmaker. I think he can make good art and has made good art, and I understand why people
Yeah,
like his
just
stuff.
not Rebel Moon. Definitely not
Yeah,
Rebel Moon.
from everything I've heard, Rebel Moon sounds like a hot ass. But
The thing I understand, as I understand it, Zack Snyder's really good when he has pushback from people. Because if he just does his own thing, like to the nth degree, you end
it's
up with Rebel Moon. And
yeah,
that's
it's
not a
just too
knock
much.
because I think almost every creative needs to have some sort of counterbalance in the production process. Like,
Yeah, I agree. This is why people often say like this is why a lot of people who say like a lot of people will say like, Star Wars will only be good if George Lucas is in charge of it. Guys, you shit on George Lucas being in control of Star Wars for years. It was called the prequels. Like let's
right?
not
Like we
pretend.
literally had evidence that George Lucas being like the sole person in charge of things wasn't good. Like it
Yeah, not
caused
automatically.
problems.
Even with A
Whatever.
New Hope, Mark Hamill in an interview once said there was a very specific line in the script that he still remembers, where when he first read it for A New Hope, he was like, "Who talks like this, George?" So
I know
yeah, it's
that's such a funny interview.
even at his best, he needs a little pushback. But yeah, with Snyder, I think the problem is this. In hindsight, I don't mind the idea of Zack Snyder making a DC movie. I think the problem was making it so that the foundation of the DC movie universe was Zack Snyder's vision and trying to funnel other creative visions through that. And while I think it worked in some instances, like Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman, there were a few instances where I was like, okay, it's not that this can't be in the same universe, but it cannot fully fit with the exact same vibe Snyder's going for all the time. So, for example, Shazam, Birds of Prey, Aquaman, all of which are movies I like. By the way, I must say this is why I say I have a
Oh yeah,
love
I'd
hate
never seen
relationship.
Birds of Prey, but I heard that was good.
It's mostly I had a good time with it. It's not perfect. It's got some issues at certainly adaptation wise, but it's a pretty fun experience with some very good music. And it's Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn who's always having a fun time. It's also got a bit more focused vision because the screenwriter and I'm looking at this now. A lot of these films have multiple writers, but this is one of the few where it was the same person for the screenwriting and story, and then the director Kathy Yan was also in charge. But yeah, I think the thing was Snyder excels at executing a perfect, like a specific kind of vision. And it's a vision that can be utilized well, but the problem is it can't work with every single DC character. And I'm going to say it, a lot of it has to do with like color grading and tone. Snyder is a very like deconstructive, I'd say moody director, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as he likes to tell more like self-serious and I feel action heavy. Almost his films give me like this muddy warrior aesthetic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
there's
he's
this
most known for 300, which is literally a movie about a war with ancient
yeah,
Greece.
even the movie Sucker Punch, like which is often considered like one of the perfect examples of good original idea, bad execution, has an aesthetic to it in its color grading and look where it's like, oh yeah, this is a Snyder movie, 100%. Um but yeah, even I honestly, aside from I'm not gonna say his movies have no color, but his color palettes are often very muted versus DC Comics, where a lot of these characters are so colorful and bright. It's not that they can't be reinterpreted through this lens, is that it can't work for every character. It just can't. Like, for example, I'm not against trying to work with that kind of palette for someone like, say, Batman. Like, I will say, love or hate Batman versus Superman, I think the Batman stuff was pretty enjoyable, even if it wasn't always well written or the best executed. I still quite like what they tried to do with Ben Affleck's Batman. I like the warehouse fight with him, and some of the visuals based on the Dark Knight Returns comics in the Batman and Superman fight itself were gorgeous. So I'm not gonna act again. I'm not trying to say Zack Snyder has no sauce. It's just his sauce is a very specific flavor, and that flavor doesn't always gel with other pieces of. But like the way I think of it, it's like this. Let's say you put marinara on pasta, but then you try to put marinara on mac and cheese. It just maybe it's fire, but you just don't think of it that way in your head. Like I don't put I put ketchup on my mac and cheese sometimes. I don't put marinara on mac and cheese because I just put it in a specific context. So yeah,
Right,
point
yeah.
is with Snyder, I think trying to focus. It'd be one thing if he just made his Superman. If it'd be one thing if just Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were funneled through that vision. I think that would have worked out better. Even though I know a lot of people have mixed opinions on the whole like Wonder Woman warrior angle, and apparently even Patty Jenkins did, because she's said in some interviews that like Wonder Woman is not a killer, even though she clearly fucking kills people in those movies. But that's besides the point. I think the problem, and I will say again, I thought he fucking killed it with Cyborg in his Justice League. I really think he was a great choice for like some of the visual stuff with Cyborg. So I don't mind Snyder cooking with certain characters. The problem is, I think they by trying to tie a ton of other characters to this singular vision and world, it's just not always going to work. There's some DC characters where I'm like, it just wouldn't work. I can't see Zack Snyder making a movie about characters like Booster Gold or Blue Beetle, or I heard rumors they were apparently going to make like there were not from Snyder, but there were rumors about possibly like a Plastic Man movie that was like horror themed. And without getting too much into it, Plastic Man, I get the appeal. Like a Plastic Man horror movie could lead to some great body horror imagery. But if you know anything about uh, David O'Brien, I think, or it could be Neil O'Brien. If you know anything about O'Brien, if you know anything about Plastic Man, you know that comedy is a big part of that character. It's not his only value, but it's important. And I don't think Plastic Man's first cinematic debut, at least not in live action, should be like anything other than a bit goofy or a bit self-aware and comedic. I think he's a character where that's actually essential and doesn't just feel like a studio chasing a Deadpool trend or anything if they were to make that. So, point is, Snyder has a vision and a specific way of doing things, and I see the appeal of it. I just don't want it to be the only way of handling stuff. And I know some people might
Yeah.
say the same thing. James Gunn, but by comparison, I think Gunn is a bit more versatile when it comes to his like I now I will say I don't know if James Gunn should direct a Batman movie, for example. I feel like I'd want someone a little unless it was like a more swashbuckling take on Batman, I'd prefer to see someone different come in. I mean, after all, that's part of why The Batman by Matt Reeves worked out so wonderfully. But yeah, with the DCEU, again, I have a love-hate relationship. I actually like more movies in that universe than I dislike. And even the ones I think are bad, I don't really hate. Like for example, I don't think Black Adam's a good movie, but there are parts of it I enjoy. Or like Shazam Fury of the Gods. That was one that got a shit ton of hate. I definitely think it is a downgrade from the first Shazam, and I'm sure if I watch it, it's going to get worse on rewatch, but I didn't hate it when I saw it in the theaters. And even The Flash, I think that movie is terrible, but there are moments in it where I'm like, fuck, they cooked, or oh wait, this is like there's one scene in The Flash where when I first saw it, I was surprised by how good it was. And I think part of the reason it was so good is because of how it fit into that story. It felt like it only made sense because of what had came before it, even if it was bad. So, yeah, point is the DCEU, I have a love-hate relationship with it. But I am very glad we are in this new universe, and I'm not gonna lie, I am also very happy that basically the only DCEU things that are canon to this new universe are the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and Blue Beetle, because those are like my favorites of the entire DCEU. So
Remind me to
I
watch
made
Blue
it
Beetle
out.
at one point and Peacemaker. That
Oh yeah,
that's on my list for sure.
Peacemaker is so fucking good. I'm so excited for the next season next month. And yeah, Blue Beetle. Obviously, I have a big soft spot for it, as Jaime is my favorite comic book character. I will say, Blue Beetle is a conventional movie. It doesn't like break new ground for the most part in terms of storytelling, but its perspective and its cast and its heart shines through, and it's also just a very well-made movie. I was rewatching a fight scene from the film, and I saw somebody in the comments say like this movie was almost good. This movie's pretty good if you can look past the Disney Channel CGI. And I was like, excuse the fuck out of me. Like, I'll say it. Blue Beetle has some of the best VFX in any DC movie. Like, I don't get how anybody could call them bad. But back to Superman. Point is,
Yeah.
the DCU, I've been very excited about this for a long time. And I was very excited as well because there was also the series Creature Commandos, the animated show.
Oh, I need
That
to
is
watch
in this
that
new
too.
yeah, it's I will say I don't think it's as good as the Suicide Squad or Peacemaker, but it still works quite a lot. There's some very good moments in it. The animation style is great. I was a little worried at first when I heard it was by the team that made Invincible, because while I know Invincible can cook with its animation and really do great stuff, there's a reason people make memes about Invincible's limited animation. And
Like the
like
fucking
how some
the shot of like Immortal gliding across the screen.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
kind of young
I'm a diehard Invincible glazer. I think the show is great. And even I have to admit that sometimes the animation is just lacking, which is really all
yeah.
on Amazon for how they organize the animation wing of the show. But like it is what it
Yeah,
is. Like
yeah, the
it's still great. The story is fantastic. The voice acting is fantastic. Like this is a side
yeah, I'm
note, but the last time I watched Invincible with my dad, I thought there was something weird about how it looked, and I kept bringing it up to him and he didn't really notice it. But I eventually found out that my TV had a motion smoothing setting on, which was basically extrapolating the frame rate all the way up to stupidly high
oh,
amounts like 60 FPS. And it looked super
oh,
unnatural with how the characters were moving. And I found out midway through one of the episodes, and I actually looked up how to turn that off because it was bugging me so much. And it looked so much better after it was done. So if you
good.
guys have any similar problems, anyone watching this, look up how to turn off motion smoothing on your TV because that
Yeah.
is fucking annoying. I'm not going to say that extrapolating the frame rate is never good, but like just
Yeah,
doing
but
it with no extra work tends to create a pretty
yes,
bad result, like an
it works
unnatural
better.
looking result.
It works better in live action I think, because of like motion blur and like movies shot with live action or like 60 FPS CGI or whatever. It doesn't look good with animation typically, or it looks off or forced with animation
Yeah,
a lot
especially
of the
with
time.
especially the more complex the animation is. Like if you're interpolating like a single movement of like a bouncing ball, that's one thing, but like, you know, when you factor in like all the ways a character moves, like it looks really fucking bad on Invincible. It's like
Yeah,
ah,
it's
but
but
anyway,
yeah,
out of that,
yeah,
with that out of the way, I think we, I did want to bring up the Zack Snyder thing because I know that there's like a bit of a like a toxic
right.
rivalry here between like I guess the Snyder cult, as it were, and like some of the gun fans. And I'm not. I mean, I've
Absolutely.
noticed toxicity on both sides of this. It's just like
Yeah.
the thing is, as far as I understand it, aren't Gunn and Snyder like friends? Like in real
Yes,
life, like they
as far
quite
as I
like
know,
each other, and they're actually quite happy with like the stuff each other are doing. Like,
Rick and Morty together. Like they are friends and it's cool with
like
each
it's
other.
just weird how the internet like kind of creates these rivalries that don't really exist because of like fan
Yeah.
wars and shit. Which is
Absolutely.
honestly kind of interesting with the themes of this movie we're about to talk about. But yeah,
True.
Superman 2025. I say this as someone who has never really been into Superman. I'm not saying I don't like the character. I'm just saying I've never read the comics. I barely remember Man of Steel, which was my first exposure to his origin story. I've never seen any of the animated series. I've never like seen any of the other renditions of Superman. I guess I did watch Batman v Superman, but that's not that's probably not the best exposure to the character. So I didn't really know a
Yeah.
lot about Superman, but most of what appealed to me was James Gunn having directed some of my favorite comic book movies of all time. I've said before, I've been on record saying Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 to 3 are probably my top 3 MCU movies, like straight up. Um, and I love the
Yeah.
Suicide Squad. James Gunn does fantastic work with superhero movies. And and I was really like hoping he could bring like some of that special sauce to like a really like optimistic, hope-inducing character like Superman. Um, Specifically,
Yeah.
in times like this where like you know, Donald Trump is the president and other like terrible things are happening around the world. It's like we kind of need a spark of hope, you know?
Yeah.
And having like a director who's done that great of a job, like made some like emotional bangers already, in charge of a character who's really simple, really emotional. It's like that is perfect for him. It's like I figured this was going to be a slam dunk. And I believe it was. As I said, I'm torn between like an 8 and 9 out of 10, but I think I'm closer to a 9. The movie is absolutely fantastic. I think the central character of Superman is portrayed wonderfully in that movie, and realized
Yes.
like so beautifully. Lois Lane is great. Um, the Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is incredible.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
fucking love that performance. And I like Crypto. Crypto was a fun addition. Um,
Yes.
I'm not
Love
even
crypto.
particularly that into dogs. My dad is allergic to fucking like every pet under the sun, so we never had one. Um, and my mom doesn't want to take care of a pet because it's already enough work to raise 3 kids.
It is very difficult to take care of a pet. It is I say this as somebody who has owned dogs and owns one now. Yeah, dogs are very
I mean,
it was
honestly,
it,
you know,
it was
I mean,
great
if
watching the film because everyone in my family was like, "Oh yeah, we have crypto." Like that is just one of our
real,
dogs, 100%.
real. Um, I mean, if I ever had to get a pet, I'd probably go for like something a bit more low key, like a cat. But like, I wonder if there's like a cat equivalent of crypto in DC. There has to be.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's something. There's
I mean,
there's
Marvel kind of
definitely other.
has, the cat from Captain Marvel, if you think about it. I forget its name, but whatever. I
Yeah,
mean, it's not really a
I
cat, but neither is Crypto an actual dog, as far as I'm aware.
right. Yeah, Goose is an alien. Technically, yeah, technically Crypto is his own kind of weird dog. That yeah, the only other I know I'm sure there's like some kind of super cat or something, but the only DC cat I can think of is Dexstar, who's a Red Lantern cat, and the Red Lanterns are powered by rage. So a rageful little cat in a red Green Lantern suit. That's sounds about right. But yeah, I at
I
least for
don't know if
crypto,
most
like
cats are angry. I think most cats are just the ultimate trolls. Like they're
yeah.
serial rage baiters.
Yeah, we've never owned a cat because of again allergies within my family, but the not on my side or my half, but yeah, we know people who own cats, and they are definitely, I've seen many a video of cats just saying fuck this glass in particular when nothing wrong is happening. I still remember a video of a cat about to push a glass off. The woman says, "Kitty, no, no, no." And the cat looks dead at her for a good like 3 seconds and still looking at her, pushes the glass
That's
off the
so
table.
funny. That is
They
so
are
funny.
they are just dickheads sometimes for the love of the game, and I respect it, honestly.
Yeah. But then, if you ever really need something, like if you're having a shit day and you just want like comfort, the cat's gonna be there. Like it's
Yes.
gonna troll
Hun-
you. It's gonna troll you like there's no tomorrow, but like when you really need it, it's always gonna show up.
Absolutely.
I
And yeah,
think so. Yeah,
go-
crypto, really great. Honestly, I was a little bit like concerned that like there would be like an overstuffing of like villains in this movie because I knew there were like three of them, but they all got utilized really well in my opinion.
yeah.
Same with all of the side heroes. I've heard that this movie is apparently like overstuffed and it like takes too much attention off of Superman with like the Justice Gang. I disagree with this take because like to
Yeah.
me, like I know I haven't consumed a lot of Superman media, so maybe I don't have the right to talk on this, but like the vibe I've always gotten from Superman is that he's a really like affable, like compassionate team player, and that it makes perfect sense to show him working with other heroes to save the day. Like
Yeah.
and also
And I like
there's a thematic purpose to those, Guy Gardner and all those other characters being in the movie, considering like the whole point is they start off as like kind of a corporate team who doesn't really like do who doesn't really like do things exclusively for like its own reasons or like do things because it's
right.
the right thing to do, but Superman inspires them to be better and actually like go out and do proper heroism.
Yes, for sure. And they
And we'll get
also
into that later, but I'm just
right,
saying
and
I
on top,
disagree that the movie is overstuffed for having these characters in it.
I disagree as well. I understand why it can feel like a lot at certain points, but I think a lot of the elements regarding yeah, like superheroes and just this crazy world are relatively picked to, or quick to pick up. And at the very least, to me, in a meta sense as well, since this is a newer universe, I like how it's going for a lived-in feel with all these superheroes being around. That there's the established Justice Gang and all these other individuals who are from DC Comics to give this world to immediately establish to new viewers like, okay, yeah, this is a very lived in world. It's one where you kind of have to you can get used to some of the crazier shit, but they're already used to it, so don't expect them to explain everything.
That's a great thing that
Um,
Gunn's also done with the Guardians because he has so much like fun world building with like these random ass like side characters that are prominent. It's like I would never call the Guardians movies overstuffed, despite the fact that they have a lot of characters in them that serve like various roles in like making the world feel more fleshed out. It's kind of like a specialty of his. And I'm not saying other directors don't do this. It's something I've noticed that he does like in his superhero
right.
movies. The Suicide Squad as well has a lot of that. It's just
In
like
fact, I would
I
what I
wouldn't like
love
the
is
movie as much if it acted like the world revolved around Superman. Like, I know Superman's a big fucking deal, and he's like really important, and millions of people look up to him. But the entire world is not him. Like,
yeah,
I like that there's
exactly.
more heroes. I like that there's like a wider focus on the universe. I don't think it takes away from his story at all, because again, it's thematically relevant. And like some of his like interactions with those guys, with like the Justice Gang, and some of his interactions and some of the other characters' interactions with them, like Lois, it's like they add to the movie.
For sure. And I love the ways that these characters are uh intro I love the way how with these characters all of them get just enough of screen time, I feel, as to where everybody gets some badass moment or big key element where
Mr.
they get to be
Terrific's
themselves.
fight near the
Oh my
portal,
gosh.
fucking love
Yeah,
that shit.
like
That was
holy
peak.
shit. I say this as somebody who's a relatively new Mr. Terrific fan. I've only read like a few comics he's in. I'm not like the biggest like knowledgeable guy on him, but from everything I've seen, he's a super cool character and it's awesome to see him getting this attention. As well as I mean, he's played by Eddie Gathetti, who played the character Darwin in X-Men First
I was
Class,
going to
a
mention
character who
that, the guy who can't die but gets killed instantly.
yes, I say this as somebody who loves X-Men the first
That meme
X-Men First
shows up
Class.
literally like every month on Twitter. It's really funny.
Yes. So it's great to see him playing a role where he gets to have more like point in the script and also like have his powers fully utilized and be more badass. It's just a really nice it just feels like everybody's being treated well and properly within the narrative and has a key role to play. And there's even some characters I wasn't expecting to be as interesting or unique as they were. Like the villain character, the machinist or the sorry,
The
the
engineer.
engineer. Yeah, the I know. So I'm very curious to see how that turns out for like her character if she's going to come back because so James Gunn, when the DCU was announced, he said one of the movies he was going to be making was a group of comic characters called the Authority, and how they're basically like, to my knowledge, I didn't know who the Authority was till he announced the film. From the research I've gathered, they're essentially like, and by research I mean watching Nando V movies explain what they are. They're basically like a Justice League that does things more intensely. They're not like the Seven from The Boys. They're not like overly edgy or anything, but they're not afraid to, get their hands dirty a bit more than other Justice League heroes. And James so yeah, Gunn said he was going to be making an Authority movie. And I when I learned that the engineer was going to be in this film, I was like, "Oh, that's fun. Introduce her here and then see how she does, and then we'll see her again in the Authority movie where she can be cool still or improved on." But I don't know what the development of the Authority film is right now. I don't even know if it's still happening. So I'm very curious to see where this character goes because to my knowledge, she's never been in a Superman comic before. But despite that, I thought she was one of the cooler parts of this movie for the fight scenes. Like the visuals of her nanotech
Oh,
felt
the
like very
scene where I'm going to
distinct and well
specify
done.
spoilers in the title of this, because we forgot to
Yes.
mention it in the actual preamble. But like, I mean, it's also kind of
Yeah.
obvious, but just in case. I just want to say real quick, the scene where Luthor and co are like, invading the fucking like ice base, and like she's just
Yeah.
flinging around the like her like fucking nanobot saws, like that shit went crazy.
Yeah. The
Like, and then you
VFX
just
were
cut to like Luthor just aura farming as the saws buzz past him.
right. Like I also felt that like the VFX as well were a great example another great example of how to do nanotech and make it feel fresh because that's something a lot of people have brought up with the MCU and how like the nanotechnology feels kind of samey mainly for character helmets and suits. But then in this case you have a character who's basically like essentially looks like she's made of this stuff and the way they visualize the powers was so distinct. When you look at the character in the comics, she just kind of looks like she's got a silver body, looks kind of robotic. You'd almost swear she was like an Ultron type of character in terms
Yeah,
of visualization. But I like the kind of like black bodysuit that's also kind of her skin look in the film. It created a very interesting design, and her fight scenes with Superman did some shit I wasn't expecting. Like that shot of him like after the fight with her toward the end, and he's just like pulling the nanobots out of his throat. Like that was
that was.
rough. Like that
Oh yeah, that whole part was like
crazy.
genuinely kind of terrifying. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you compare it to something like Iron Man in Infinity War, I love Infinity War. It's like it's a great fun time. I'm not gonna bash it or anything. It's just in Infinity War, Iron Man's like nanobots are kind of just a crutch so that he can repair his armor, and that's kind of like all that they do. Like, they also kind of form a shield around him, but like that's like the most generic thing you can imagine a nanobot doing. Whereas like with the engineer, like she's really going hog wild with nanobots. Like she was given nanobots, and she's gonna make that everyone else's fucking problem. And
Yeah.
like and like it really feels like she's utilizing them to like the best of her abilities. Literally fucking suffocating someone by putting their nanobites in their body is crazy work. Like,
Yeah, that's a disturbing idea. And the gosh, that so yeah, all around.
the
Not like the
fact that she
deepest
almost
character.
got yeah, the fact that she almost got Superman with that implies that that's just a thing that she can casually do to just anyone she feels like, which is terrifying.
Right. It's just it was such an again for a character that I think is a risky inclusion, given that we don't even know if the movie they're supposed to appear in, based on the comics, is even going to happen. Like they were used well for the time they got. So yeah, the machinist was a very effective side villain. And oh yeah, I guess since we're
The
also talking about
engineer.
villains, yeah, the engineer. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying the machinist.
There
I
might be
keep
another character named the Machinist that's throwing you off. I feel like there could be.
yeah. There's like I think there's like some other DC or Marvel character called like the Machine Smith. Let me look this up actually. The
I mean,
Machinist.
I'm thinking of Machine Head, who is a character from Invincible.
Oh, it's a Christian Bale movie. Or maybe
Oh,
no, I swear there was something new.
that's
Oh,
actually that's actually a reference to DC because Bale played
wait,
Batman.
is
So
okay, it's either okay, so I'm either thinking of a Christian Bale movie from 2004 or a Fortnite skin called The Machinist. So there we go. But yeah, while we're actually on villains, I would briefly like to touch on Ultraman a
oh
bit.
yeah, Ultraman.
Ultraman was pretty cool. He wasn't like a big character, but he wasn't meant to be. He was used as a clear like physical force that could take on Superman. I kind of liked having just this silent hulking figure he could punch that had mystery throughout the movie. The reveal of him
Side
being a
note,
clone was interesting.
yeah, and I mean it's a good
Um,
explanation for how Luthor was able to get into the ice base. It's like,
right. And
man, the
for
whole
a
plot wouldn't
Superman,
have happened if Superman just hadn't just like installed 2FA on his fucking base. Just like, bro, add your phone number or something.
exactly, just two-factor authentication
I
on
mean, I guess
the
that's the
fucking
lesson he learned.
right. And I do like how this kind of I don't think Ultraman is the best part of this movie, but I like how he kind
No,
of ties
no.
into what I said earlier about how lived in this universe is. Like this is a Superman who's still relatively new in his career. He's only like 3 years into his career, but within that time, there's been enough time for Lex to get his DNA and make a clone of him, and I think that's interesting. I will say I bet Ultraman's gonna come back, and that dimensional like shifting shit. I bet he's gonna be Bizarro.
Yeah,
I
I've
bet
heard
he
that being
survives.
said a lot.
I bet he's gonna survive that black hole and become Bizarro
You know,
somehow.
one of the
I
few
can't.
comics I have seen is a comic about Bizarro. And it like
Ah,
explores his
interesting.
bizarre like universe where like he and he gets trapped in the normal universe, and at one point he sees like a cat in a tree, and he thinks the cat is like hurting the tree, and he starts like attacking the cat.
Oh God, that's
And then like Superman has to tell him to chill the fuck out.
right. That sounds about right because everything with Bizarro stuff is backwards. You tell them to jump, they'd probably just stay stationary on the ground. And yeah, I think that as well. I was very curious to see how because that shot
I do want
in
to
the subway with like his battle damaged mask that was released as like a sneak peek picture by James Gunn. He just made a post that said Ultraman with that screenshot of like the fucked up mask, and I was like, what the hell is this character's deal? So I liked what they did with him in the movie. It was a
yeah,
very
yeah.
it was a very simple but good like Superman clone kind of thing. And I actually liked how in the narrative it kind of feels like using the idea of an evil Superman as a tool in a way. It's nice to see culturally we've kind of had so many evil Superman takes like with Omni-Man and Homelander, and even when those characters are
Well,
good
well,
or
I will
great.
object to that. Just on the basis that Omni-Man isn't meant to be an evil Superman, necessarily.
Okay.
Invincible is more so about like what if Superman had a shitty dad, instead of like what if Superman was evil,
Okay. Yeah.
because
So like,
I think
what if
Mark is
Jor-El
probably
was
the
God?
yeah, sure. I think I think Mark Grayson would be like the Superman equivalent character. He's not like, I mean, he's not like as up there as Superman, and he's
Interesting.
got like more like, I guess, like robust flaws. And well, I don't want to say Superman doesn't have flaws. I'm just saying like he's not as powerful, nor is he like as
It,
like
it's actually,
universally like great.
now that you say that, that
But he's
makes
still
so much
kind of
sense.
Superman. Like he's very similar to Superman in mentality. He's a very powerful guy, a very powerful like teenager, because he is a teenager in the story.
Right.
He wants to do the right thing, even though his father turned out to be a really shitty guy and wanted him
Glad
to
you actually,
conquer the planet.
I'm
It's
glad you
kind of
said that
like
because
it is kind of like if Jor-El actually managed to get to Earth with Superman and like eventually tried to convince him to conquer Earth, and Superman said no.
interesting. Yeah,
Like
I'm
that's
actually
the
so glad.
best way of, I guess that's the best way of I'm equivocating that, because obviously you have to account for like how Ma and Pa Kent would factor into this, because with Mark, he doesn't have like two Earth parents. He has Omni-Man and then his mom, who is a human. So
Yeah,
it's not a
for
one to
sure.
one. It's just that's kind of what he represent. Mark represents more of a Superman type in the story, and
I
Omni Man
find that
isn't supposed to be Superman. I mean, with
I find that
Homelander, I think he's supposed to be a take on what an evil Superman would look like, but not Omni Man. I'd say.
Yeah, I always found that I find that so interesting because I always looked at Invincible kind of the same way I look at Spider-Man. I'm not gonna
Oh,
lie.
he's
I think it was
definitely
this.
he's Spider Man too in a lot of ways. It's kind of like if you honestly. Okay, these comparisons are never going to be perfect. I'd say he's like between Spider Man and Superman.
That
Mark,
makes
I mean.
sense to me because, like, even ignore. I know there was like a Spider-Man Invincible crossover in the comics as well, so that probably like is influencing my opinion of this. But I'm sure that for me, it was like the secret identity stuff, like the stuff I heard about, like struggling with school and girls and friends and such. That to me, I associate more with Spider-Man than Superman, even though I know Superman has like secret identity stuff, especially in like the cartoon My Adventures with Superman, which I recommend. Really great show.
Yeah, I haven't
Um,
seen that, but again, I should probably get on watching that.
yeah, it's good. But yeah, with the Invincible thing, um, I'm losing my train of thought. I think I said all I wanted to, but I'm glad you brought that perspective because I never looked at him. I don't think I ever fully looked at Invincible that way. I saw like his powers as Superman, but like character wise, I saw Spider Man more in him. So yeah, I seeing him as an in between is a good way to go about it. But
I
yeah,
definitely think there's a lot of Spider-Man in his personality and his daily life, but like in terms of like his position in the wider like universe, he's very Superman adjacent.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, speaking of yeah, speaking of like the Superman characters, I guess.
I do want to quickly bring up something about Ultraman. I heard that
Yeah,
there
go
was
for
like
it.
a cut scene where like Ultraman punched Crypto, and that had like a negative like response from audiences, test audiences. I mean, so like James Gunn removed it, and like
Yeah,
apparently he just maybe he decided to cut it for other reasons. I don't know. Like it was a tweet that reported on it, and for some reason everyone like made a huge deal out of that. And they were like, "Well, why can't villains be evil anymore? Why can't we see them punching a dog?" It's just like I don't know.
that's
I don't think it matters.
interesting.
Like,
I
I get the complaint. I understand the complaint of like wanting villains to be evil and not wanting them to be sanitized. But this is also the movie where Lex Luthor. Let me go down a list of things that Lex Luthor does. He sells
Yeah,
arms to for free to a dictator so that he can split up a country and rule as a king. He executes a guy in front of Superman just to make him feel terrible. He I mean, he literally kidnaps the dog. So not even
people
the
in the
dog
box.
is off limits here. He
He
basically
imprisons people.
forces Metamorpho to torture Superman under threat of his own son dying. Like, this is not a
He
movie where
also
they pull back punches on the villains.
He
So,
also conducts illegal
you know,
experiments on animals by forcing a bunch of monkeys to type on computers. He imprisons people, including his own critics, in a pocket dimension. He's like he made that pocket dimension at all through shit that is really dangerous and unstable by sci-fi bullshit standards. So, yeah,
yeah,
Lex
he's
Luthor,
fucking horrible in this movie. I mean, horrible as a person, not horrible as a character. He's great as a character. Um,
yeah,
the point I'm trying to make is this is not a movie where the villains pull punches. If anyone was worried about that. Like, just
for
because
sure.
Ultraman didn't punch a dog one scene does not mean that they're sanitizing the villains. It's such an
Yeah.
overreaction to a very minor thing. It's like, you know,
Yeah, and
it's
like
one of those
as a
things where I
reminder,
understand the point. It's just like, is this really the example you want to make this point with? Because it seems like such a non-issue.
yeah, and this is a good reminder of the reasons I left Twitter, because on Blue Sky I did not see anybody making that statement of like, why can't villains be evil anymore?
You know what's
I
funny?
saw
I
people.
actually saw it from a Critical video because Moist Critical went on a whole rant about this, and I thought that was a weird take. Like, I understood where he was coming from, but I felt like it was a bit of an overreaction to what seemed to me like an extremely minor, like, thing.
Yeah, I agree. Like that's odd. And I yeah, I understand. That's one of those things where like these kinds of discussions are always interesting, I feel, when it comes to like especially like a lot of these discussions I mainly see in animation, but I find it so interesting in a comic book movie sense because as I just find that this discussion itself could be like another podcast episode even, because this idea of like we why can't villains be evil anymore? I'm just kind of over here like, guys, we had a lot of comic book villains that were just pure evil or like basic evil, and you hated them. You hated Malekith in Thor the Dark World. You hated Caecilius in Doctor Strange. You hated
I mean, Malekith, the
Ron.
problem with Malekith was that he was just fucking boring, so.
I agree. Malekith wasn't a well executed character, but like we have other similar characters where they were described as just like generic evil bad guys, and people hated them for years or like called them weaker villains, like Ironmonger and Yellow Jacket. Who I must say, Yellow Jacket and Ant Man, I will fight people on this. He's a good villain, not perfect, but way fucking better than people give him credit for. Like we've and to an extent I get it. I don't want just generic boring evil villains. Honestly, I felt that's what Kang was in Quantum Mania. The biggest problem for me with Kang in Quantum Mania was he just felt so uninteresting. They talk over and over again in the film about how he destroys timelines and can manipulate time itself and build him up as this big threat. And then I just didn't feel that menace. I think the most intimidated I was by him was the part where, like, after seeing all this horrible shit he's done, Janet asks him who is Kang, and he just says who I need to be. And when she says like lives could be lost, and he says, I wish that mattered. That was probably the most intimidated I was by him. But in that whole movie, at least from stuff that wasn't in the trailers. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
I
mean,
get
when
it.
you compare it to someone like Thanos, who, like, you actually feel the threat of him with that, like, massacre
Yes,
scene with, like, Gamora's planet, and you feel the threat
right.
of him because you see how he tortures Nebula repeatedly. You feel the threat of him because he executes Gamora, like, straight up to achieve his goals, because that's how, like, into it he is.
Yes.
Like, they do a
And so
perfect job of setting him up like that, whereas, like, someone with Kang, I know this isn't really the topic of discussion at hand, but
yeah,
yeah,
I just
it's
I
not
just
the
wanted to
same.
highlight that because I just find that so interesting in a comic space where people are like, why can't you just let villains be pure evil anymore? We did a few times and you fucking hated them or thought they were the lower tier villains of certain universes. So, I mean, I know we have good examples obviously now like Hela in Ragnarok, but I don't know. I just found that kind of funny how like
Yeah, I guess.
honestly,
I mean, I think the
I do
problem
get
people
it.
have is more so that, like, villains just can't be shown doing evil things, which, I mean, sometimes is true, but again, this is the movie where, like, Lex Luthor does all that shit, so.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
not the movie
it's
to be making this criticism about, honestly. Just because he removed one scene of a dog getting punched.
Yeah, like
Only to
even if
still have the dog getting in danger be like a major part of the plot.
yeah, Lex was more than enough of a threat throughout the film with just all the evil shit he was willing to get away with. I mean, I'm still thinking of the I still that line where he says like they chose him, let them die. Like that is
It's the
pure Lex
exact
Luthor
kind
right
of
there.
it's the exact kind of petty shit that's also like extremely evil that you see from like a lot of real world like billionaires. Like it's
Yes.
impossible not to draw comparisons to someone like Elon Musk. Even though
Yes.
of course Lex Luthor still accomplishes more than Elon Musk. So I'll give him that.
Yes, that's actually an interesting thing. I remember watching before this movie had like a trailer and plot and stuff and was like really ready to go. Back before this movie was like really announced to the world, there it was rumors about like a Superman reboot. Nando made a video where he pitched like either a Man of Steel sequel or a new Superman film. And in that video, he made a great point about how the reason Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor in Batman versus Superman didn't work isn't because he was acting weird, isn't because he was like this or that. It's because they leaned too much into this idea that Lex Luthor is the exact same as like because this was back in the movie was being made in 2015. And as Nando said, we had a lot of different opinions about tech billionaires like this back then. And I'm going to be quoting slash paraphrasing Nando a bit, but he basically said, and I agree with him on this, tech billionaires in real life are not Lex Luthor, not in full. Lex Luthor would not like spend Lex Luthor would not spend millions of dollars on Meta. Lex Luthor would not like put on a cowboy hat and put champagne over William Shatner after he's stunned about like the beauty of Earth with a weird rocket ship thing. And most importantly, he would not buy Twitter to get the approval of a bunch of weird nerds through shitty memes. And in fact, one of my favorite Nando quotes: Lex Luthor would never tweet. So and don't get me wrong, this movie kind of does that tech billionaire stuff too, but it feels more interesting. It's not that oh he's the direct tech billionaire making certain decisions directly himself. He's hired a bunch of weirdos and psycho people and just immoral people who are willing to go along with his shit to execute his plans. So it feels more and he's much more manipulative and interesting. There's a sense where with the public persona that Lex put on, I can see how he'd manipulate people out like beyond closed doors or beyond like his Luthor Core tower. So I felt the execution was a lot stronger here, and Holt brought just the perfect balance of pathetic psychopath to the role. Like I was as shocked by how evil Luthor was as I was just wanting to punch him in the fucking face. And it was so well executed throughout the movie. He really just had this like presence throughout the whole film and this fear of like how are we going to stop this guy? Like how the fuck do we handle this dude? And I also like how the movie still even had like a happy ending in that regard with stopping his stuff. It wasn't just oh Luthor is exposed. They also free everybody from the pocket dimension, monkeys included, and like really try to tear down his shit more thoroughly after the exposure. It's not just Lex Luthor gets away the entire time. Even though I am curious to see how this character comes back and how he'll manipulate the system for his gain again. I'm happy that Luthor is still alive.
I mean, if they
Because
make it
as I've seen,
accurate to the real life justice system, it's just going to be like the jury conveniently found him not guilty on any charge.
right, yeah, it's a very I also like it from
The
just the
jury comes
general
back with the verdict. The judge like sentences him to like 6 months of probation,
right, yeah, and
and then he
I
doesn't
bet
even
that's
attend it, and he just gets off anyway.
yeah, I bet that's something similar is going to happen when we see him again. I'm very curious to see how that goes because he'd probably be like one of the first like recurring arch enemies in these movies recently. Because aside from maybe Magneto in the X-Men films, if even, well, yeah, Magneto counts, but I can barely think off the top of my head of like recurring bad guys through some of these movies, Marvel or DC. Like I think like Lex Luthor I know survived BVS and had like a quick Justice League cameo in both versions, but Yeah, in terms of other villains, there was like villains that stayed evil and showed up in other stuff. What? There was Zemo, I guess, with Civil War and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Technically Val with her Phase 4 and 5 appearances. If that even counts. But not like a recurring arch enemy, for example. Like we didn't, for example, have like a version of the Joker popping up throughout an entire trilogy of Batman movies, or we didn't have Cheetah come back from Wonder Woman 84, which honestly, given everything I've seen from that movie, was probably for the better, and I can't wait for Cheetah to be done justice in the Wonder Woman film that they're working on, which that is some good news I've heard recently. James Gunn has said outright, we do want to make Batman and Wonder Woman movies, and the moment the scripts are done, the moment they have a Batman script and Wonder Woman script, those films are going into immediate production. So that is great to hear. I'm very happy to hear that they are, because a lot of people, myself included, have been like, okay, is Wonder Woman actually a character you guys want to work with, or are you just not going to do jack shit with her? Like, she's in the Trinity, but even in the first DCU announcement, we had no announcement of a Wonder Woman film. And then the Monolith game got canceled as well. So it's like, what's going on? Like, why can't Diana win? Uh, and even the cancellation of even the Wonder Woman 3, like, it sucks either way because it's canceling a Wonder Woman movie, even though she deserves more. But if Wonder Woman 3 happened, it'd still be Gal Gadot. And public opinion has changed on Gal Gadot for sure. So, yeah, not to
Yeah.
derail the whole conversation about Superman, I just figured I'd bring that up because with Lex Luthor, I'm curious to see how he comes back later on in other DC properties or just the Superman trilogy in general. I want to know how they're going to
Yeah,
plan that out.
for sure. I mean, regardless of how that happens, I just think he was done wonderfully in this movie. Just the sheer
Yeah,
hater energy that this guy has. And like,
for sure.
and I mean, he does like have the perfect balance of being like extremely like punchable but also like legitimately terrifying. Like like the way he even treats his girlfriend is like low-key terrifying as fuck. Because like you
Yeah.
because like sure, like maybe it's funny in a vacuum that like he's like pissed at like his girlfriend for like just like undermining him for Jimmy. But when you think about it from that girl's perspective, that is literally one of the richest, most powerful men in the world. And like he's doing that to her. Like that's got to be fucking terrifying.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, I thought like after that shot of like the closet being opened when she's sending the stuff to Jimmy and like Ultraman or Lex drags her out, I genuinely thought we were gonna learn later in the movie that she just died in a really messed up way. Or like she was found dead or something. Because
Yeah,
that like
that wouldn't have surprised me. Yeah.
because Lex was just so evil in this film. Like I fully believed the like that would have come back up later. But
100%.
W her, she helped like bring down his whole fucking shit with
Yeah,
those
I love
pictures.
that. Like I love the fact that like she was like portrayed as a bit of a ditz, but she was actually like really intelligent. It's like don't judge a book by its cover. Like with all
Yeah.
those like photos. And I love the gag that like Jimmy is just inexplicably like a fucking player. And he doesn't even try to be. He just
Yes,
has like Riz and aura wherever he goes.
exactly. That's pretty great for Jimmy as well because he just gets up to so much stupid shit in the comics.
Yeah,
I heard a rumor.
I've heard the comparison that Jimmy's life in the comics is basically like a regular show episode.
That sounds about right. From everything I've seen with Jimmy, that sounds perfectly accurate. Like there's a comic where he like just to get just I don't know everything with Jimmy Olsen. I know there's a comic where he accidentally marries a gorilla or something. Jimmy Olsen comics are weird, and I heard recently James Gunn is considering TV show possibilities for both Jimmy Olsen and Mr. Terrific. I'm all here for it. Like that sounds
Oh, let's
fantastic.
go.
They
That's
can
gonna be
find the right
peak. That is gonna be peak. Um,
Oh my oh my gosh.
yeah.
And
I mean, I think you were gonna say something when we were finishing up with the Ultraman segment before I redirected us to I
I don't
redirected
know if
us
I
to the whole like Ultraman punching the dog thing, which brought us to Lex and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't think I was. I was just, yeah, commenting on how I liked the way Ultraman was utilized, even if he wasn't my favorite thing done with a villain in the movie. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I had another point, but I would at
That's
least
fair.
like to
Yeah.
talk about I part of me does just want to go talk about like the superheroes, but I do want to talk about Lois, at least for a moment,
Yeah,
because
for sure, for sure. I was gonna
Lois
say, I mean, like, with a performance on the level of Nicholas Holtz, like, you need something of a massive magnitude to match that in Superman. And I think David Cornsweet delivered and then some. Like,
yes.
I was really impressed by what he managed to pull off. And he made the character of Superman feel like so unabashedly human.
Right.
But
Yeah,
we'll get
this
to
this
that
is
in a minute because I agree. We should probably talk about Lois for a second.
yeah, Lois is definitely like obviously Rachel Brosnahan did a great job with the
For
role.
sure, for
I've
sure.
again, I will say I'll bring this up later as we kind of close out, but when it come with point is with my Superman history, let's just say I have more history with Batman than Superman, just to start. So I've not seen every take on Lois Lane or every version of her. But from the versions I have seen of Lois, it's always nice to see her used well. Like I will say, I'm sure Amy Adams could have been a fantastic Lois Lane if the movies just handled her better. I don't think she was done like horribly dirty or anything, but I felt she got utilized weaker in the Zack Snyder films, honestly. And especially compared to like she's great in the just like the DC animated universe stuff, like the classic Superman adventures, Justice League Unlimited, all that. And then in my adventures with Superman, that's probably one of my favorite Lois's. She's like the comparison has been made that visually she looks like Luz from Owl House, and kind of a similar personality there. But yeah, Lois
I
is
mean, I really think
really
people are only saying that because of the hairstyle. Like,
yeah, it's her being tan and having
I guess
short
that
hair.
too.
That's really it. Which is funny because it's like oh they look similar. They're not even the same ethnicity. Luz is like Dominican American. Lois is like half East Asian at least in my adventures with Superman. But yeah, I love Lois in that show. And I really enjoy what Rachel Brosnahan brought to this performance. I like how
I mean, I bought
like
the chemistry between Lois and Clark in this, and I really enjoyed their scenes together. And I love that like Lois was out there trying to save like her partner.
yeah, I loved how she tried to when she was interviewing him, it was easy to see how he was getting frustrated with her, but she was just doing her job. Like she was approaching this how she would as Lois Lane and just going for it with what she believes in and what she's trying to get across in an interview or what the
One
get asking
hundred,
hard.
100%. And I mean, I think Lois going out to save Superman with Mr. Terrific is a great example of how like Superman isn't just saving people, like people save him. Like he has his own support network because, of the inspiration he is. And you mean you get that as well with like random fucking people on the street like helping him back up because they love him so much and because he's
Yeah,
done so much for people. I
for
love
sure.
I mean, I just love the fact that he saves fucking everything he comes across that's alive. A fucking squirrel. Who the fuck saves a squirrel? Superman
Right.
does.
Yeah,
That's the answer.
that's one thing I love about James Gunn movies. In hindsight, like I love this was something I realized about Superman that I really loved about that is one of the things I love about James Gunn projects. In every single piece of superhero media he has made, at least in Marvel and DC, I don't know about some of the earlier stuff, but for every single piece of superhero media he's made, James Gunn always considers what's happening to the animals in these larger than life scenarios. Obviously, that's probably most reflected in like the Guardians Volume 3, especially with the saving of the animals from the High Evolutionary, as well. Eagly in Peacemaker is a great example. The rat catcher stuff in the Suicide Squad as well. But the reason I say specifically here, that shot of him saving the squirrel really made me think, okay, yeah, that's not only fantastic for Superman, but also that it's so satisfying for me to see this in superhero movies because it's a question I've asked myself since I've watched a lot of superhero stuff. A lot of the times when I watch superhero stuff and I see these big city destruction sequences, in the back of my mind, I'm always going, what about like zoos or locations with animals? What about like pet stores and stuff? What are happening to the animals in these scenarios? Like how many animals are dying in these crises or how many creatures are being left behind? Like, for example, what the fuck was the Central Park Zoo going through during the Avengers? Like when the Chitauri were flying everywhere, like what was happening to the animals that lived there? Or what happens in like a disaster movie? Like what happens with the animals of zoos? Where the hell do they
Did
go?
the
So
blip take out animals too, or was it just sapient beings?
it was I mean it's the blip to my knowledge was half of all life in the universe. I
Okay, but
infer maybe
that's just bullshit though, because like we don't see trees disintegrating, and that's life. So there's no way.
you
And also half of all bacteria would die. So there has to be some sort of cutoff point, right? Like
right, yeah, like would it be like the dominant beings of a planet? Like half of all
again, I always
like
just assumed it was sapient beings, like, beings
it's
with consciousness. I mean, I guess animals do kind of have limited consciousness themselves. So I don't
a
know.
certain degree of yeah, I don't know. It's those kinds of questions of autonomy are very difficult, of course. But yeah, now that I think about it, I don't know how that works in Infinity War. But yeah, with James Gunn's superhero stuff, showing these heroes like going out of their way to save animals, especially that part, I felt very as somebody who has like a perspective on animals where he understands, like that stuff happens with dangerous animals in populated areas and sometimes they need to be put down for people's safety, but it is still sad. I really felt seen by the part where, the Justice Gang kills that giant monster by basically like blowing open its stomach from the inside so it bleeds to death. And Superman just has this look of like, oh, come on, man. Like just he's not like he understands why it happened, but he's just disappointed because it's like he says, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that really connected with me. So that's one thing I love about James Gunn stuff is that he shows I think in the animal side of these universes that a lot of other films kind of neglect or don't really work with much beyond like a few maybe animal sidekicks at most. But even then, it's like what Rocket, I guess Harley Quinn's hyena and Birds of Prey, that sort of stuff. So yeah, with the gun superhero media, I really appreciate when he does that. And but back to Lois, I
Yeah, for
really
sure, for
dug
sure.
that whole interview scene was really fun. I loved the back and forth between her and Clark. Their delivery felt very natural. I loved I love the bit about like Superman saying like Superman doesn't have time for selfies or like internet stuff, and then Lois brings up the hashtags and he's like super shit. Come on, Lois, you know that one specifically like annoys me. It's like this is on record,
Oh,
Clark. It's
that feels so real to me because I mean, I'm someone who like gets weirdly impacted by like certain types of hateful comments, which is why I try to distance myself from them. Um, so it's nice to see that even Superman can feel overwhelmed by that stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
I loved how I also really liked the bit afterward where she's at the sink and she's just like and he's trying to see if she's okay and she's just like yeah, no, I'm good. I told you I'm not good at relationships. I'm like that felt like a very real honest like relationship moment. To me it didn't just feel like oh these are actors doing a great job. I was like no, this is Superman and Lois in a relationship. It
Yeah,
felt like
they
a
really
very
disappeared
real.
into their roles, and I love how she's proactive in this. I like when the
Yeah,
love interest is a proactive character who has their own shit going on. I don't think a love interest should always just be an extension of the main character in the story, and that's not what that felt like in this movie. I
yeah,
think
no,
Lois Lane was very much like portrayed to be her own character, um, and really
100%.
complemented Superman well.
I loved her going out of her way to like go to the fucking pocket dimension. Like even though she was scared to go in that like pocket dimension opening with Mr. Terrific, she was still like she was the one who encouraged him to go the Justice Gang to go out there and help. Clark and find him after he was detained. So it's really good to see like a character be this proactive. That is one thing I will say. I like how DC movies, they seem to at least try to be more proactive about some of their love interests. Not all of them. I think there were some examples where they just didn't work. Like Iris West in The Flash was barely there, which is unfortunate. Um,
I
and
think I
I thought
forget
they were
his
going to
name,
do.
but Chris Pine's character in Wonder Woman is pretty well utilized as a love interest,
Yeah,
right?
Steve Trevor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Steve
he's used
Trevor.
well. From my understanding, he's used well in the first one, but then the second one just. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, fun bits from Chris Pine's performance because he's a pretty charismatic actor, but like, nah, yeah.
But I think there are some of these movies where they did try to at least give the love interests a little more agency. Like so for example, now look, I'll admit I don't like Amber Heard, but I got what they were going for with Mira in Aquaman. I don't think she was a great character. I think she's one of the weaker ones in that film. But I appreciated Mira at least being able to like kick some ass and have really cool like water effect powers for her fight sequences. I liked that she wasn't just like when they said in interviews of how she's like no damsel in distress and she's strong and empowered and badass. We actually get to see that in the movie 100%. It didn't just and look, you know me, I hate anti-woke people, but I hate that I do agree. I do get frustrated sometimes when people talk about like insisting upon a character being strong as opposed to actually showing it. I get that from a writing perspective and a filmmaking perspective.
I don't think
So,
anti-woke people are the only ones who complain about this. It's just when
yeah,
anti-woke
no.
people do it, they tend to complain about the wrong instances of it.
And
Sometimes they'll be right, like a broken clock, but
yeah, I was just highlighting that because I know there's a lot of overlap with that stuff. It's the frustrating
for
thing where
sure.
even if you have valid criticisms of movies like Captain Marvel or fucking I don't know the Ghostbusters remake or that shitty looking Charlie's Angels movie from like 2019 or whatever, even if you have valid criticisms of these films, they still because of just the annoying people, there's just so much overlap. And with the Superman movie, they're still fucking here. Like
Yeah.
I saw a screenshot on Blue Sky of YouTubers that were saying like Superman is the new Last Jedi, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? We are still comparing every single slightly divisive movie to that fucking Star Wars film. Are you
How is it even
kidding me?
remotely similar? These are
They're
two
not.
completely different movies. What?
These are completely fucking different. It's like, and even then, as an insult, I'm just standing here like, why is this an insult? Oh no, a flawed but well directed movie is what this new
For
comic book
real?
movie feels like. And I'm like, okay, and it,
Yeah, so what? And there's nothing in
sucks to be
Superman
you.
that's on the level of Canto Bite anyway. Like,
Yeah, sucks to be you if you're still pissy about The Last Jedi. I've moved on with my fucking life. I didn't even hate the movie. I loved it when I first saw it. Now I'm just indifferent to it, and I don't want to rewatch it. Not
I
because I hate
liked
it,
it.
but because
I actually quite liked it on rewatch. Like I was definitely in that mind space of like this movie sucks actually, like critics back in like 2019ish. But I kind of grew out of that, became indifferent, and then I rewatched it and I was like, this is kind of good actually. Canto Bite
yeah,
sucks though. That's still a really bad subplot.
yeah, I agree. I'm sick of all this shit of like I really just hate this current thing online that's still somehow current where it doesn't matter what fucking movie it is as long as it's a big blockbuster and as long as it has flaws or is slightly divisive and especially with legacy characters or a recurring franchise, there's always going to be some fucking person that just goes but The Last Jedi or like The Last Jedi. I'm just like, stop.
This isn't
Get
like
new.
it's there's nothing. It's not like The Last Jedi, bruh. It's just
They're
not.
not like for example, by comparison, Superman has a key side character who is black and is actually utilized well and badass in the movie. Like let's get that across. For example, like Finn was
Lamau.
poorly. I don't like how Finn was used in The Last Jedi. Most people don't. Mr. Terrific, on the other hand, is an actually badass, well utilized side character. And I bet people would still call him woke because, oh, a black guy has to come save Superman. Like, if that, I bet you
A
some
black guy
motherfucker like Ben.
and a woman? Holy
Yeah,
shit.
I know. I bet you, I guarantee you, some motherfucker that follows Ben
Not to
Shapiro
mention
thought that.
Metamorpho. I don't know what the fuck he is, but you know, he's something.
Yeah, right. I guess speaking
Well,
of,
you
yeah,
know
do we
what? You
want
know
to talk?
what? Could Metamorpho technically like shapeshift into any race?
I
I'm now
don't
randomly thinking that.
I don't think so. Metamorpho's powers are, they're not technically basic shapeshifting, like, in a traditional sense of like, oh, you can disguise yourself as someone like a Skrull would, per se. Metamorpho's powers are strictly like, he can physically turn his body into different elements. So, like for example, he bursts into acid in the movie, or he can, like, turn into a vapor or some kind of liquid or
Oh yeah,
rock
side note
material.
about Metamorpho. I like Metamorpho. I think his part in the movie is good. I like
Yeah.
the end gag where like he joins like the Justice Gang and like guy is like no, please no, please no, and then he finds out he's gonna vote to keep the name. He's like, all right, yeah, you're in. Like
Yeah, that was so
that's some
good.
funny shit. But like
Yeah.
yeah,
I
besides Metamorpho like being like a cool side character for the movie, I just you know his baby, right? I
Yes,
couldn't
that was
stop
a
fucking
surprise.
thinking. I couldn't stop thinking about Chicken Jockey whenever I saw that baby. It took genuine restraint for me to not just yell out Chicken Jockey in the theater
Oh,
the
God.
moment the baby showed up on screen.
It was so funny because, so fun fact, that baby was actually in a Funko Pop for the movie that came out with Metamorpho. And when I first saw that thing, I was like, what the fuck is that? I was so curious about, like, is it like an alien creature? I was so curious to see it in the movie. When I realized it was his son, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna fucking stab me in the heart, isn't it? Because, like, because I knew, because Metamorpho is actually a character. I kind of wanted to talk about this with, like, my opinions on these characters from a comic perspective. Again, of the Justice Gang heroes in the movie, Mr. Terrific is the one I know the least about, I'd say, in terms of like, in terms of when I got into his character, or in terms of how long I know about him. I've known him the least amount of time. But Metamorpho is a character I've liked since I was a kid. Like, one of my favorite cartoons was Batman Brave and the Bold. It's a fantastic animated series of Batman. It's goofy, but it's very sincere and honest. And it's basically every episode is Batman teaming up with a different hero. Like, his first episode is him teaming up with Blue Beetle, for example. And so my introduction to Metamorpho was that cartoon, and I really liked his character. He was in a different context, but I liked his power set. I liked his look. He always felt like a unique character to me as a kid. It's this funny thing where, as I got older, I started to like the broader Justice League heroes more. Like, I felt like I finally got the appeal of Wonder Woman and Superman and all these other characters. But as a kid, I liked a lot of the more obscure characters like Black Lightning, or even, I don't think Green Arrow's obscure, but he's less popular, I'd say, by comparison. Or at the very least, I grew up with Green Arrow before the CW Arrow show just turned him into, like, Oliver Queen, but the Dark Knight, basically. And so seeing Metamorpho, I've now seen him in, like, several cartoons. He was great in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. He had a whole episode dedicated to him that was awesome. He had a quick cameo in the Young Justice series, and he was used fantastically there. He actually got to take on Deathstroke in a really cool way. And that's no easy feat, because Slade is not someone you mess with. So when I heard he was going to be in this movie, I was so excited. I've heard nothing but great things about Anthony Kerrigan as a performer. I know he was on the Bill Hader series
Oh,
Barry.
wasn't
I
he
have
wasn't
not.
he also on Logan?
Yes,
Wait,
I think
no,
he
wait.
was.
Oh no, wait. I think that was Stephen Merchant actually. I'm
Oh,
just thinking
I know.
because his character is named something like Kerrigan or Corrigan. I'm trying to remember.
Interesting. Okay, well, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was in the Barry show by Bill Hader, which I've heard nothing but peak about. I do want to check it out at some point. I just haven't had the time or focus. I'm looking at his IMDb now. Let's see. He was in a Scooby Doo movie. That's cute. He,
Which is
he
also
was.
directed by James. Wait, no, is it one of the live action ones?
No, it's an animated. Oh, it's a
Oh,
video game. It's a video game called Trick or Treat Scooby Doo.
oh,
This is
okay.
funny. He played Putin in the Animaniacs revival. from
What?
2020. That's
Putin?
hilarious. I
That's a
did not know
character?
that. Apparently, yeah. And it looks like he's also had history with DC. I remember this. He was a shape-shifting character already on The Flash during Flash season 1, the CW show. And then I just looked up. He played the serial killer Victor Zsasz, a Batman villain on the Gotham series. So it's cool that he's had some history with DC. And I must say, by the way, the makeup for him is fucking incredible. Like, to look at that and think that's practical makeup is insane to me. Like, just there was a featurette release for the film where I got to see him like in front of a blue screen. It looks insane in motion. It's such gorgeous detailing. It's a perfect balance of getting the broad colors from the comics down, but then also adding little details and textures. Like the character poster for Metamorpho, especially when James Gunn posted the character poster for him, he described Metamorpho, like Kerrigan's portrayal of Metamorpho, as haunting in the film. And when I looked at the poster, I was so excited because he looked like a fucking universal horror monster. I looked at that poster and I'm like, I'm looking at a mummy or like a Frankenstein poster in color. It's just so yeah, props to the visuals of Metamorpho in this movie. He looked incredible. His CGI was
For sure,
great.
for sure.
The bit of him bursting into acid on like the armored security guard dudes in the void, and then he's just flying away with his head. Loved that. That's the kind of
Yeah, it's
insane
just kind of
shit.
funny how like that's like how he looks, and then like you go to his and you go to the baby, and it's just chicken jockey.
Right.
Like it
I
literally
also
looks like
love
chicken jockey. You can't tell me
yeah,
it doesn't.
I also loved that bit when it was like showing, the I know I'm gonna butcher this name, so I have to double check to make sure I'm pronouncing it. The when it was showing the news reports of like the Jarhanpuran people, like the kids putting up the Superman flag, and you briefly see the shot of Metamorpho at his house or his apartment with his wife. That was nice to see for me because I like that's a big part of his backstory where he's basically like manipulated by a tech company or like a guy in charge of a tech company, and his wife is led to believe that he's dead. And at first he almost feels like a freak after getting his powers, like his wife won't accept him, but she does. So that was, again, it's not explored in the movie, but that was nice to see as somebody who knows the character in other material. It was a fun quick bit. um but yeah, Metamorpho, I will admit, he didn't have quite as much of a role as I was expecting in the film. With how little they showed in the trailers, I thought, oh, they're gonna really do something crazy big with him, which they did, to be fair. I especially love, like, oh my god, the fact that I can say there's a Superman movie where one of the action sequences is Superman going down like a quantum or like an antimatter river or whatever the fuck, about to be sucked into a black hole while trying to save a green, like, metahuman baby. Like, that is a wonderful sentence. I love that I can say that this is a thing in a superhero movie
I think the
because it's
movie
just,
just feels so comic booky. I mean, that's what I've heard
yes,
being said. I don't know if I can speak on this
and
considering
it's
I
not,
don't read comics,
and
but
it's
like,
not, and it's not comic booky in a sense of excusing flaws because it's campy. It's comic booky in a sense of it's sincere and they play it straight, and that's part of why it works. I understand why it's popular now to make fun of the goofiness of comic book stuff. And make fun of like comic book character names and have like Deadpool meta humor. I get that. But it's also nice when people play it straight with some of this stuff because it shows you they're taking the medium seriously and they're not trying to like reinvent it or turn it into some like meta commentary on how superheroes are outdated or goofy. It's like, no, sometimes you got to be sincere with it. And that's why I think this Superman works so well, is that this movie clearly cares about the character and his world. And speaking of course,
100%.
I do still want to talk about the other heroes before we really move on to Clark himself
Yeah, of
anymore.
course, of course.
So Hawkgirl, played by Isabella Marced, really liked her in the movie. Got probably the least amount of screen time of the Justice Gang, but was still a lot of fun. Um, my brother, after we saw the movie, he went on Blue Sky and said Superman was fucking peak and Hawkgirl was so hot. Like that, which to be fair is true. But even ignoring
I mean,
that,
he's
she was
speaking. You know who's in agreement with him on that? basically every lesbian and bi girl, apparently, according to Anthony
Yeah,
Gramuglia. He said so.
I agree. I say this as a bisexual. Yes, this opinion is factual. But
I got
even
to
ignoring
agree
that,
as
like
well.
she was just fucking cool. I liked how there was just this raw, and I also like how they did not go into her backstory. I know this particular version of Hawkgirl is the Kendra Saunders character, like that's her civilian name. But Hawkgirl in the comics and Hawkman by extension have had a very back and forth backstory. Sometimes they're aliens, sometimes they're Egyptians with magic, sometimes they're like lovers who are eternally resurrecting over centuries as the same superheroes. They've had a lot of weird, all over the place backstories in animated and comic material. It doesn't help as well that most people know of Shiera Hall from the Justice League cartoon as Hawk Girl, even though she's actually not. She's Hawk Woman in the comics. There is a Hawk Woman as well. So, point is, the Hawks at DC have had a very complicated history. But it was cool to see a version of Hawkgirl where she just got to be badass. Loved how the mace looked. The wing CGI was great. The colors were really cool, even with the Lord Tech unifying jacket. I loved that helmet. And I especially loved the bit where she's like breaking into the Baravian like headquarters or capital or whatever. How she's just flying through the hall like screeching like an actual bird. That was really
Dude,
fun.
I love when she said Hawk Toi, and then Hawk Toi all over the dictator.
I love when she murdered Netanyahu. I mean Netanyahu. I mean the guy in charge
I mean,
of
maybe
Moravia.
Putin.
I mean maybe Putin. I mean
It could be both.
Yeah, he could be both. Yeah, but that was a great moment. I loved.
Yeah. Speaking of which, can we actually?
Yes.
Well, after this, can
Yeah.
we talk about Baravia and Jarum for a little bit?
For sure, yeah. Do we want to go over? Do we want to briefly go over Guy as well?
Yeah,
Just to,
sure.
like,
Yeah,
discuss him?
Guy Gardner was cool. I mean,
Guy Gardner was
I like that he was
great.
a bit of a dick who like who came around and actually like became reliable. He
Yes.
kind of reminded me of Rexplode from Invincible. I know
I,
you haven't seen it, but you'll know what
I
I
think
mean once you do.
is that Seth Rogen's character
Not
on that
Seth
show?
Rogen. Seth
Oh,
Rogen is Alan the Alien.
okay, interesting. But yeah, Guy Gardner. This is another case where this is actually a character where I've known about him since I was younger. It's funny. Green Lantern is one of those characters where I never got into them like in full until I was older. Probably because there was that culture after the Green Lantern movie did so bad, where everybody treated Green Lantern like a fucking joke because the Ryan Reynolds film did not do well. But now that I'm older, I'm like not so blind, and I know that Green Lantern is fucking cool, or I've at least remembered it. But Guy Gardner, especially, again, this is another character where I was introduced to him in Batman: Brave and the Bold.
I
But
like the
I've
scene
also
where
now,
he did some gardening and he was like, I'm Guy Gardner. I garden shit.
but he's also I've seen him in other cartoons, and I have read some comic books with him in it, especially Blue Beetle. Guy Gardner is actually like super important to the Blue Beetle mythos for Jaime in the earlier comics, because like the people that made the Scarabs and the Lantern Corps have like a negative history with each other. So Guy Gardner is a character I'm familiar with across multiple fronts for years now. I genuinely don't know if he's my favorite Green Lantern or not, because Guy Gardner is such a simple but effective character. He's the asshole Green Lantern with a heart of gold. He's the asshole with a heart of gold through and through, and I thought he was
Yep, that's
perfectly
basically
done.
Rexplode. That is exactly who Rexplode is. That's why I made that comparison.
Good. He
Yeah.
was perfect in this movie. When I first heard Nathan Fillion was going to be playing him after seeing the Master Karja character in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be so great." The bowl cut was appropriately ass. It was excellent. It's
Well,
orange
I'll
in the
have you
comics.
know that hundreds of chicks disagree.
The bowl cut was hilarious. That was such a great moment as well. I loved how it looked like an intentionally shitty wig, but it fit so perfectly with the character. His delivery
Real.
was funny. It always looked like he was about to be like chewing gum or something with that smug ass face. He really did. But as well, I think Guy Gardner was the perfect fucking choice for this movie if you had to have a Green Lantern. And here's why. So, we do know next year for the DCU, we've actually got a few projects announced. We know that next year we're going to get the Supergirl movie, we're going to get a Clayface movie directed by Mike Flanagan, which is really fucking cool. But then we're also getting a Lanterns TV series. We're going to get a Lanterns TV series for HBO, whatever the fuck it's called now. Could be Max, could be whatever. I don't care. And where they're going to have Hal Jordan, played by Kyle Chandler, and Jon Stewart, played by Aaron Pierre. And I'm very excited for that show. I'm very curious to see what they do with it. But I think putting Guy Gardner first in the DCU was the smart choice. And I say this because, again, ever since that Ryan Reynolds film failed, Green Lantern has been a laughingstock in cinema. Even in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, they had a joke where Jon Stewart says, like, there was a Green Lantern movie, but we don't talk about that, which is funny. I like the jokes for the most part, but now they're kind of old. And I hate this idea that, like, just because this is the thing I hate about superhero movie culture. I hate this idea that just because you fail once with a good idea, you can never really work again or like be handled well again.
Yeah, this isn't double jeopardy laws or some shit. Like,
right. Like this is why
I mean,
really
Fantastic Four has had two
Yeah.
different attempts over 2 decades, and we're now looking at the third attempt.
Yes.
You know, which looks really
And-
promising too. I will add. I really like the '60s aesthetic and all the stuff I've seen from the trailers.
Same. I'm hoping it's awesome. And but yeah, with the Green Lantern, I really hope we don't have this happen with the Flash. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the Flash film was really bad. I did not like it. But I don't want the character to be blacklisted forever just because that movie and Ezra Miller suck. Like, I don't want
I
there
think
to
at
never
least,
be an
I think at least in the case of Flash, there's the TV show to rely on because I feel like that's the more like definitive version of the character in a lot of fans' minds because like that's such a
Yeah.
culturally relevant like show.
Right. And don't get me wrong, the show fell off. It's got some really bad stuff in it, but it was more
Well, no shit,
it
but
was a
like
better
the first few seasons were like very
Yes.
popular and like
I
well liked.
I kept up with the shows. I binged the first 2 seasons before season 3 came out, and I kept up with the show for a while. I stopped watching around like the beginning of season 6 after they finally did the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover they'd been building up for years. And I will say this, I felt it was right to stop watching the show around then, but I still have a lot of great memories from those first 2 to 3 seasons, I'll say. And part of the reason I kept up with those shows was because of the characters and the fun of seeing certain DC characters. So yeah, I do hope that we do get a new take on Barry Allen or even Wally West, because Wally West is another popular take on Flash. I'm not against him popping up either, or even hell, we could even get a Justice Society movie with the first Flash, Jay Garrick. Like, might as well. But yeah, with Green Lantern, his movie was just it's been a laughingstock joke for years now, and in some ways I understand why, but I think especially now it's nice to see people being like, okay, we've had our fun, can we make Green Lantern cool again? And while I think there have been some attempts to do that, like for example, the Green Lantern character Jessica Cruz has probably been the most successful Green Lantern as of late, because she's appeared in a lot of animated material for kids, like DC Animation likes using Jessica Cruz, and she's going to be the main character of the upcoming, we're getting a My Adventures with Green Lantern show, which I think is great. I love My Adventures with Superman. I'm very excited to see what they do with Green Lantern. I hope some aesthetic elements from the show, mainly with the villains, don't carry over to the Green Lantern one, but I'm very excited to see what they do with it. But yeah, with the Green Lantern movie, I think Guy Gardner was the fucking perfect choice to transition us back into thinking the character is cool or awesome before we do the Lanterns show. Because Guy Gardner, like I've said, he's the asshole with the heart of gold. He's the kind of character who's so full of himself, you just want to you get giddy knowing somebody is going to punch him in the face at some point or just chew him out. But when he locks in, He can get shit done and is cool and awesome.
My
So
friends told me,
I think
Guy Gardner, showing up and like killing a fuck ton of Nazis with basically middle fingers is like the greatest aura recovery in superhero
that was one
history.
of my favorite moments in the entire movie. Like, it's awesome seeing Green Lantern use constructs in general more. Especially after, look, I appreciate, I know Zack Snyder fought to have Green Lantern show up in his Zack Snyder cut, which apparently WB wouldn't even allow when he was just making the regular Snyder cut. But the Green Lantern in the Justice League, like the Zack Snyder Justice League, I'm sorry, he was lame. Like, I appreciate an alien design, but all he did was shoot green beams in the Steppenwolf flashback. That's it. That was lame to me. I wanted to see more with that character. So seeing a Green Lantern that's more creative, like making giant oven mitts and like the bear trap around the monster's mouth, I fucking love that bit where Superman's just in his apartment talking with Lois, and in the background you see the Justice Gang fighting the interdimensional imp. Like, that was so, and Guy Gardner's using the giant baseball bat. I was so fucking happy to see that. That is something I like. That's one of the things I associate with Guy Gardner. I associate Guy Gardner with the baseball bat construct. Like, each Green Lantern, I almost think of a specific kind of construct that they utilize, or something within their passions that fits them. So seeing Guy Gardner make a big ass baseball bat in the background was just so cool. And yeah, that whole scene in Baravia was great, with the heroes using their powers to help people. And because, yeah, now that I mention it, so yeah, Guy Gardner was fucking peak in this movie. I think he was the perfect transition from taking a intentionally kind of goofy but also badass Green Lantern to make people like him again before we go back to the more serious ones. I thought that was brilliant. But speaking of the Baravia thing, we can finally segue into that, because I know you wanted
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Would you like to take the floor for a second? Because I just
So
yapped for a bit.
yeah, for sure, for sure. The Baravia thing. I mostly like the Baravia plot with like Baravia's attempted invasion of Jaranpur. The movie does a lot of stuff with this that like I really appreciate as like someone who studies like geopolitics as a history major.
Mhm.
I'm not saying the movie goes like deep, but it does like things that like are very well appreciated given like the climate we're currently living in. Because I mean, I think it's obvious that there's at least some imagery and some intent to reflect a certain event going on right now, which is the ongoing
Yeah.
genocide of the Palestinian people by Israel. And to an extent, I think it's also kind of true that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is reflected by this. But I think
Oh
most
yeah. That.
topical I think most topical, though, would be the genocide of Palestine because, I mean, Baravia is depicted as an ally of the United States. Basically, in the
Right.
movie, you know, Baravia is a dictatorship. It's implied to be a dictatorship where the president has, like, absolute power. Um, and the president, you know, he orders a military invasion of Jaranpur. And of course, there is a bit of a plan with Luther in there where like he wants to split the country with Luther, you know, give him a fucking like half of Jaranpur to just make into his fuck ass like kingdom. It kind of reminds me of, you know, like how Trump would like go on Truth Social and be like, I'm gonna make Palestine into a fucking resort or like some
Yeah.
insane shit like that. It's like that almost felt like a reflection of that. But like more generally, like the Baravians just going in and like attempting to massacre people was very, very reflective of like what's going on. And the way that the
Yeah.
conflict is also talked about, I don't know if I want to say conflict. The way the invasion is talked about by people in the story also feels very reminiscent of this. I love I love the part where I mean I've already glazed the shit out of the Superman and Lois interview scene because it has like just generally great dialogue. I love the way they talk about the conflict in that. I keep saying conflict. I want to say invasion. It's just slipping my mind. They keep talking about the invasion in that scene because, you know, Superman's facing a lot of criticism because he went in and he stopped the Baravians from committing a massacre. He basically
Right.
went in, he smashed their tanks, he smashed their planes, and he went up to the president and he was like, listen here, if you do anything like this again, I am going to fuck you up. Um,
Yeah.
and so they withdrew for the time being, but Superman got a lot of criticism for this because Baravia was an American ally, and Superman was assumed to be acting on behalf of the U.S. I love that in the scene where like Lois like does the interview and like questions him about this. He's like, I wasn't representing anyone but me and doing good. So
Yeah.
I love that part. I love the part where he keeps insisting people were going to die when like she brings up questions that are like attempting to overcomplicate it. Because this is also something with the you know, the Palestinian genocide where it's like people will like
Right.
obfuscate by talking about, well, actually it's a really complex situation with like numerous factors, so how can we really pick a side? It's like I'm just gonna say this out loud. I'm just gonna say this for anyone listening. I recently got an article on the MSN homepage about a previous prime minister of Israel. I believe his name was Ehud Olmert. I may not be pronouncing that completely correctly, but
Okay.
he was basically coming out and saying what's going on right now in Palestine is blatant ethnic cleansing and a concentration camp. That's not a Palestinian saying that. That is an Israeli prime minister, a past prime minister before Netanyahu, saying blatantly that this is a concentration camp and this is ethnic cleansing. Now, I'm not going
Yeah.
to hand wave away that the fact that this guy was also in charge of like a settler colonial ethno state. So I'm not like glazing him or anything. I'm just saying if even a past Israeli prime minister admits this, why are we still denying this? Why are we still
Yeah.
appealing to complicated, to quote unquote nuance when it's super clear what's happening? It was always clear, but now it's like, but like, it was always clear. I'm not going to say like it wasn't clear what was happening when we were seeing all that footage in the first place. It's just we're so far past the point of being able to deny it. And all these appeals to
Yeah.
like, oh, it's super complicated. How can we pick a side? I'll say this as a history major. If you take something like World War II, there are so many interesting and like nuanced factors behind why the Nazi Party rose to power and why World War II happened. Does that mean the Nazis were not unambiguously the bad guys? No. The more you
Yeah.
research World War II, the more interesting it becomes, and the more apparent it becomes who was the bad side. Or at least who was by far the worst side. Like,
Right. And I also have to say, in reference to like the whole stuff with Baravia, I have to mention when I was watching the movie, there was that part where, the Superman message, like the message from Superman's parents is shown negatively by Luthor on like television and all that. And you get the part of the Baravian president commenting on it. And you have that part where he's like, I hear Superman has like a secret harem and is fond of Baravian women in particular. You
and
know
then it
what that shit
immediately and it immediately cuts to him being surrounded by like three different women right after making that message. By the way,
that's
did you notice
that's a
that
great
too?
point. I didn't notice that actually. I when
Like
I
he's
because
literally
I would
surrounded by like three or four women who are complimenting him right after he sends that message. Right after he
I was
accuses Superman of having this like harem of like Baravian women.
that's also a great way of hammering in that point. I was more focused on how that kind of language, to me at least. Now I know like maybe different people have different take on this, but when I heard that like goalpost moving of like I hear he's like in a secret harem that likes women from my country and wants to take them, that reminded me of like the way like some people have tried to say like all Palestinians are like evil rapists or stuff, or called like Mexican immigrants coming to to my country like racists and stuff, or rapists. And it's like, yeah, this is real language that these fucking psycho politicians use to demonize people. And I was like, thank you, Superman movie, for being blunt about that. Like it was really
Yeah,
nice to
100%. And I appreciate that Baravia was depicted as a U.S. ally. James Gunn has not
yeah,
shied away from criticizing the U.S. government, and just I shouldn't even say criticizing, just straight up shitting on it, and
right.
deservedly so in stuff like the Suicide Squad, in this movie. Obviously, that's also a thing in Creature Commandos, but I haven't seen that, so I'll have to get on that.
Yeah, the
It's
U.S.
like
government gets me. manipulated at quite a few points during that. And
Yeah, I
it's
mean, and yeah, I mean, Boravia, I mean, it's funny how, like, and again, like, there are people who call the conflict or the invasion, like super complicated, and we don't know. It's a complex geopolitical situation, they say multiple times. And then when they cut to actually showing what's going on, there's nothing complicated about it. It's an army coming into a country and massacring its people. Like, there's no reason not to pick sides on this. Like, it's like everyone acts like, well, not everyone. There's people skeptical of it, but like the official narrative is like, oh, but it's just too complicated. And then you see it, it's not complicated at all. What's complicated is the machinations behind it, of course, like with Luther and the Baravian president and all that. But like
yes,
the actual act is not complicated. This is where people get it wrong. Nuance is supposed to be clarifying, not obfuscating. That's the point of nuance.
right. People, what in this case, it's like people, the thing with the whole invasion, especially with Moravia and this other stuff in real life, it's that there's a lot of context. Yes, the context is layered, but the actual thing going on isn't as complicated. People are confusing layered context for complication with this stuff. So
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm very happy to see a superhero movie representing this stuff. I must say as well, like here that part you mentioned earlier of like Superman talking about like the whole I wasn't representing anyone but be like me and doing good. I don't think I've
I
ever felt
like
like so fucking seen by a Superman. By like every version of Superman I've seen, I see myself in that sentence. Like I just like in trying to pay attention to real world issues and trying to give donations to people or animals in need or like try to figure out like okay, how much do I get for myself versus for other people and how do I help the world while being an artist and being like having my own passions in life and not just giving everything to a single cause. And because like for example, I get a shit ton of charity donate like emails every day, and there's it just feels like one after the other sometimes, and it's like when does it end? When does the world
yeah.
just
And the
stop
worst part
fucking
is
sucking?
you don't know which one, you don't know which ones are scams because a lot of them are scams. It's unfortunate that people would take advantage of goodwill, but like it's
It's
true.
fucking
I've run into so many scams like when I was on social media, on Tumblr especially. It's hard because you don't want to be heartless and like never donate to anything, but you have to vet things and it's like it gets overwhelming seeing the sheer amount of stuff out there.
Yeah, like dude, I actually, and I know this from experience. I actually had to get a new like card recently, a few months back, because I think through like a compromise link or something, somebody got my card number. Now, granted, it was very funny how I got this information. I got a security alert that said like, "Hey, we don't think you were the one who used this number." And it was some random person buying
Yeah.
fucking like 25 bucks at Wingstop. Like that was pretty funny. But it
Pull
still
them
shows
out.
that like yeah, this stuff happens and it's that frustrate I've just felt like that throughout the entirety of 2024, especially recent points like this year and like toward the end of 2023, especially. It was that frustrating sense of like what is good enough? Like what is good enough to help save the world even though I'm only one person and that sense of like what and this is also something I thought about a lot with my artwork because I want to put a lot of myself and my perspective into my art and talk about real issues, but I always have this stuff in the back of my mind of like, well, what about this perspective and what about this perspective and can you understand this perspective, but you have to bring it in even though you've never lived it and don't understand it, but you should comment on this or should talk about this thing. The more you like branch out with your art and your connections and whatever popularity you may gain from it. And in my head, I'm just like, there's some times where I have to stop myself and like, I basically had to be like, can I just slap my brain and not think of the implications for 5 seconds and just try to do something good and earnest? Because it's a frustrating thing, like, especially as someone like me, because yes, I am bisexual, so I count as technically a minority in this country, but I'm still a white American. I'm a white cis male American. And even as a bisexual, my romantic preference is women, even though I find both men and women attractive. So I joke with myself sometimes. I'm like 2/3 straight, a third gay. in a sense. But like it, so I say this as somebody with like technically I count as like seeing different issues and shit, and my perspective is my own, but I still benefit from certain structures and ideas and concepts. So diving into things philosophically and trying to figure that out as to how to be an ally or whatever other terminology you want to utilize to try and do some good, like it was just really nice to see a superhero film reflect that in the character of Superman. It was nice to see these feelings I've had vetted in that kind of conversation, and how like it still gets complicated even when you just like I really love how James Gunn took the approach of Superman is pure kindness in a world that sees kindness as outdated or like old fashioned. In a world that sees kindness as like if you're kind, you could be manipulative or trying to gain something, or you don't think about consequences or such. And I really am glad that that perspective was put on screen here, because I think a lot of people needed to be reminded that Superman isn't like a bad person to look up to just because Zack Snyder wanted to be edgy, or because we've had evil grimdark Superman, or because I don't care if he's a fucking cornball in the comics. I feel no shame in saying I look up to Superman now more because of things like My Adventures with Superman, and because of David Corenswet's portrayal, not only because of just the sincerity and the heart and the effort they put into the handling of this character, but because of just what he represents and what he wants to be, just earnest and good. Not perfect, but just good, and trying to make the world a better place. So, yeah, the point is, like, overall, this is just one of the reasons I love this movie. On top of me thinking it's just a great superhero movie altogether, I love this movie. Honestly, it's tough, right? Because the Batman, I think, is peak. Like, that to me is the best DC movie. And it probably still will be my favorite DC movie. But Superman is like so close, it's not even funny at this point. Like, it's Superman and the Suicide Squad are so far up there for my favorites from any DC medium. And just the passion here is incredible, but especially with how it feels like it's reflecting things I've seen in my life and things that I wish other people would be more aware of and discussing. Like I saw the Baravian and Duranpuran conflict. I think I misspelled it. Hold on. I have the wiki, the DCU wiki open just so I can get my pronunciations right. The
I
Jarhanpuran.
love
Okay,
that classic. I love that classic blunder where I misspell something through speech.
yes,
We all love this classic blunder.
I call it speaking typo. It's a very frustrating thing.
A
But
Speako.
yeah,
Rhymes with
Sneeko.
Sneeko.
No, yeah, no relation to cuck. I mean Sneeko. Anyway, yeah, it's
Uh,
but yeah, this movie, it feels like it's just representing so much of like, yes, this is what I've been seeing when I see the Jarhanpuran and the Baravian conflict, or sorry, the invasion and the mistreatment. I'm just like, yes, finally, someone making a stance on like what's being the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Or when I see like the monkeys angrily typing on the computer, I'm like, I'm glad James Gunn got his dig at the people who were never going to see him as good enough, or never view anything he does as good enough with the character.
real.
And when I see David's Superman, I just see like, yes, this kindness can be aspired to, not perfection, but just sincere goodness and niceness. It's just so good. And look, I'm not one of those people who thinks that superhero movies are soulless or that they've lost all soul. I've been a pretty decent defender of the MCU recently with some of its projects. I think a lot of superhero
It's almost
projects,
like that was our entire last episode.
yes, I think there are a lot of superhero projects that have more soul than people give them credit for. And as I kind of described in our last podcast thing, I hate this idea that people try to say like Marvel needs to give more vision to creative directors. I agree, yes, but they have been doing that recently. And some of them, like Eternals and Echo, where they had free reign, people still disliked it. So you got to be more specific, is all I'm trying to say. Or
Real.
at least it feels like you should be more specific. But yeah, with these with Superman, it's so nice to see a film that is just so a YouTuber who I haven't seen a ton of their stuff, but a YouTuber I casually follow named Jesse Gender. I think they're the one who's also, call me crazy, isn't that the person who also does ContraPoints, the YouTube channel? I could be wrong.
No, that's Natalie Wynn.
Okay, but yeah, Jesse, I think Gender or Granger, what however you say her last name. I know
It's
it starts
Jessie
with
Gender.
G.
Okay, no, that
Okay.
is her channel name. Her actual last name is Jessie Earl. I know this because I follow her more frequently. Jessie
Okay,
Gender
yeah.
is a
Well,
nickname.
yeah, well, so Jessie Gender, she described the film as like a radically kind masterpiece.
That
And
I saw that video, and yeah, I agree 100%.
yeah, I didn't see the video, but when I saw the thumbnail, I'm like, yes, I agree. Yeah, her Blue Sky post right here. Superman is a goddamn masterpiece. Holy shit. And I 100% agree. Like, this is one of my new favorite
Bigly
like comic
so.
book movies. Yeah.
I have a
If you
couple. Actually, no,
yeah, go
yeah,
for
you
it.
go. You go. Unless you
I
wanted to
was
say
about
something.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, I know I've just been yapping for a bit, but I basically got the big points I wanted to talk about with all this off of my chest. So if you
Yeah,
want to
100%.
go off,
I just have a couple more things I want to say about Baravia. I like in the conversation. I know I was already talking about the conversation. The interview scene. I like how they mention that like the Baravian perspective is, oh, we're actually liberating these people from an oppressive regime, and then Superman's like, okay, so what? Like, okay, if I believe that, you know, maybe their government isn't perfect, maybe their government is corrupt or oppressive themselves, it doesn't justify going in there and killing people. Like, and
right?
he has such a strong conviction about this. It's like, I love that he's like dedicated to this idea, because he knows what's up. Like, there's never a justification to commit like a genocide or like a massacre, or ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
That's just never a thing you can like excuse. Um, and he catches that shit right away. Um, and I like that, like, and I like that they contrast that by literally showing like the president of Baravia, like, say the streets will be filled with the blood of every Jarampurian. So like clearly he's full of bullshit when he's saying that. It's kind of like
Right.
it's kind of like if you translate like an Israeli government like tweet, it sounds like the most insane like genocidal shit you ever heard. Like, and in
Yeah.
keeping with the whole allegory. I mean, I do have a couple of small critiques actually about the Baravia stuff, even though I like generally think it's really great. A couple things I don't love. I don't love how Baravia is kind of just portrayed as like a generic Slavic country, because Slavs are kind of just pigeonholed into this role of like dictatorial countries or like villains in movies like this. And I didn't love that this was just like another example of that. Like, it could have been
Interesting.
like, I'm not saying that's like horrible or anything. It's just maybe not like the most like creative decision. Um
Yeah, that's fair.
I also didn't love how like the president was kind of like portrayed as like really like conventionally unattractive, because like it kind of felt like they were going with like a bit of a gross out thing for him, and I don't know, I don't think that should matter. Like, even if he was a conventionally attractive guy, like he'd still be an absolute shit person. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
maybe I'm over exaggerating this point somewhat. It just felt like
I
they were kind of leaning into that whole thing, and it was like,
yeah,
eh.
I did I saw him less as like visually, I saw him less as like, like body shaming and more like like an exaggerated fusion of I think Trump and Netanyahu, bluntly. Like kind of
Yeah,
that
no,
vibe
that's
with the
fair.
hair
Like,
and the old man look.
this is true.
But
This is true. Yeah,
it's
it
that
might be more of
frustrating
that.
balance of like I say this as some
I don't think they had any like jokes at the expense of him like being fat or anything. But, you know.
yeah, no, he like ate a glazed donut, but even then I saw that as like, oh, he like showing him eating such a sanitized food brought through excuse me, brought through such an insane way to him as he's talking with Lex.
Yeah,
Like
for
I
sure, for
I
sure.
and
I also
gentrification and that
yeah.
shit.
I also don't really, I mean, I love the scene where like the Justice Gang shows up and fights the Baravians. I don't really love the way that it's set up though, because the framing of like the whole military advance into Jarampur is just like really weird. Like they only end up like blowing up like a couple cars and they don't open fire until they've like specifically like made a certain like until they've gotten to a certain point in the area when like realistically you'd expect that like they keep like they would probably just open fire right away the moment they get the order. I feel like that could have been prevented by just not having the president give the order until the Justice Gang was about to like arrive. Instead, you kind of get this awkward moment where they're like slowly going toward the civilians who are running without firing any bullets. And to compensate, they blow up like one or two cars, but there's no actual casualties. And it seems
I
like
get
it's kind
that.
of artificially done to like get the scene into a framing position where like the Justice Gang can show up and save the day, which is a good payoff to the scene. It's just I kind of wish you had done this a little bit differently. Like
That's
I know you
yeah.
suspend your disbelief for stuff in comic book movies, but like we're talking about this is the like almost horrific war crime scene. Maybe not this time, you know?
Yeah, I if I
Like
had to be charitable, I would think that my thought process in my head was maybe they couldn't go far enough with it in that regard because of the PG-13 rating. Like yes, they get away with a lot of stuff in this movie, but rating system stuff is always fucking weird with
well,
comic book movies.
I'm not saying they should have actually shown the massacre on screen. I'm just saying it would have made more sense if like the Justice Gang showed up right as they received the order to go in.
Right, yeah, that's fair. And yeah, I think that I agree. I think it's either
That's a very
it
minor
might be
gripe that I'm not going to die on this hill. Like I still think that plot is like really good and poignant. It's just a couple small things that like maybe are slightly handicapped by studio mandates. I don't know. Or
yeah,
maybe it's just a slight mistake.
if it's a rating system thing, that would not surprise me because like for example, The Dark Knight was able to get away with a PG-13 rating. That movie has a lot of violence and death in it. So they compromise by showing no one drinking alcohol, nobody smoking, and having little to no sex. Like there's a
What?
lot of weird
Well, it's like a
things.
barter system where it's like, okay, look, we're not going to include this, but we will include this. Our deal? Like,
Right, like rating system shit just makes no sense. Like when you really look into it, it's funny how
it's
that
literally
kind of
just
stuff is.
vibes based.
Yeah, like like for example, PG as a rating system because of how it's changed over the years can includes Pixar's Inside Out on one end, and then something like
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, like that the movie where Nazi faces melt is apparently on the same rating as the Pixar emotion movie, which, and don't get me wrong, that's not a slight against Inside Out. I really like that movie, and I obviously of course firmly believe that stuff for kids can be dark and interesting and intense. But even compared to other like darker animated films nowadays, like Wild Robot or even Kung Fu Panda 2 or something, Inside Out, at least to me, is like, really? That's what we're gonna slap a parental guidance needed thing on? Okay, fine, I guess. I mean, it seems no different from Toy Story, and those all got G's, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit
Um,
like that one comparison I've seen with like the old movie The Brave Little Toaster, where they like literally show like cars
yeah,
being like
it
ripped apart and destroyed in like, and these are supposed to be sentient, by the way. They're
yeah.
like objects that are like sentient that are being like destroyed in the scrapyard, and that's fine. But like fucking Frozen gets like a more like restricted
It gets
rating in comparison because I don't know, like someone got shot with a crossbow once or like fired a
someone,
crossbow.
someone got shot with a crossbow. They had a joke in the movie where Kristoff asks Anna about Hans's foot size, and she's like, "Foot size doesn't matter." Like, okay, because innuendos, you got to factor that element in too. Um, but yeah, mind you as well. Yeah, Frozen's a PG movie. You want to know what else is PG? Kubo and the Two Strings, and an animated movie where characters' eyes get cut out or
That's
cut. Like,
crazy. Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Lamau?
I won't say it, but the opening of the movie is really really sad and dark. It's go watch Kubo and the Two Strings. It's a fantastic movie. But yeah, the PG rating system, mind you, I think Kubo is a great example of what a PG movie should be in the realms of animation. I just find it funny that like films that feel like they should be G are getting bumped to PG just because of a few adult jokes and not really
Yeah.
anything violent, I'd say. But yeah, with the back to Superman, yeah, I understand your perspective. I know when trailers were coming out for the movie, there were some people worried that the film was going to take a white savior angle with Superman. And the moment I heard people voice that concern, I was like, not mind you, they weren't saying like the movie was going to suck. There were just some people who were a little afraid, like, could they do accidentally do a white savior type thing with the character? From the moment I heard that, I was like, okay, I don't believe that's going to happen at all. And I say this because, listen, I get it. The whole white savior trope is a thing that exists. And there are superhero movies where, yes, some white characters feel like they are over focused on or feel like they do more. I understand the criticisms, for example, of Everett Ross in the Black Panther films and how he kind of feels like in a weird way forced diversity, like, oh, we got to have the one good white person.
No, that's literally it. I feel pandered to by like good white people in these sorts of
Yeah,
movies.
it's one thing that I understand, especially in the case of
I
Ross,
like
because he was.
Ross though. Like he's kind of a funny character, but
Yeah, make no
yeah.
mistake, I like Everett Ross, but I do get the criticism of like, oh, Wakanda's opening up to the outside world and one of the good people that helps with that is a fucking CIA agent or like a
Yeah, I
Fed,
don't
when
like that
really
he's a CIA
when
agent, but I like
when
him as a
realistic.
character.
Which, to be fair, I think they're done with that after Wakanda Forever because of what they did with him in that movie. But yeah, I it is one of those things where I understand the criticism. That said, I think we need to remind ourselves of what a white savior definition like is sometimes. Like a white person helping people in a foreign country is not a white savior by default. Like that shouldn't be I don't think that's a like divisive statement or anything, but this is something I've kind of noticed with characters, especially like Steve Rogers and Superman. I understand why we should criticize those kinds of constructs and ideas, but at some point, it's like, come on. Like, these are people with the best of intentions, and yes, we should criticize these systems and ideas, but it does kind of get to a point where it's like, when can they just be good people first and white people second in some stories with these kinds of things? And mind you, with Superman especially, if Superman, like, oh, he tried to stop a war, well, first of all, because it's directed by James Gunn and like handled by him, and James Gunn is very smart about this stuff and the consequences of these, considering the consequences of these things and breaking down these kinds of ideas related to white characters, especially with Peacemaker. He does a great job there. Like, okay, let's say Superman did stop a war and save people. Like, is the criticism, I understand, to me this is one of those things where I understand where the criticism comes from, but I can also understand how some people would take it as like, oh, so we're mad that he's saving people, like Superman shouldn't save people. It kind of reminds me, I'm not saying this is one to one, but these kinds of ideas, they sort of remind me of the whole thing. Now, mind you, this was pre every opinion we have of him now, I think for most people. But it kind of reminds me of the whole Mr. Beast blind people thing, where when that video of him helping blind people see again came out, there was a lot of people who, you know, voiced criticisms of Mr. Beast, and people took that as, so you're mad he helped blind people. Like, that's so.
Right, yeah,
And
that was some frustrating discourse. And I mean, looking back on it, I kind of wish we had a Superman instead of a Mr. Beast, but you know.
yes, I agree. And mind you, again, I'm not saying it's one to one. And in hindsight, especially, I do agree that Mr. Beast is a frustrating individual. I'm really, a part of me kind of feels like a part of me feels annoyed that I kind of went to bat for him a few times. I'll admit, I was one of those people who didn't care about some of the implications at first with the blind people thing. I was just like, okay, he's using his money to help people. Who cares? Even yes, I find his thumbnails cringy, but who cares? That was my perspective at the time. But you know, with revisiting it, obviously there's a lot of different opinions going on in my head. So point is,
Yeah. I
I'm not
mean,
saying this is one. one to one, but you get what I'm coming from, right? Like the white
I do
savior
kind of get where you're coming
thing.
from. And the point of. I think it would be a valid critique if, like, the entire movie was just that, and it was, like, focusing specifically on, like, Superman helping, like, saving, like, this, this country of, like, very obviously, like, Middle Eastern coded, like, people. If that was, like,
Yeah,
the entire movie, and it also didn't focus on their perspective at all, then maybe I understand the criticism. But the reason why people don't like white savior stories is because they're stories that focus on, like, the liberation of a people, but center a voice that is not of those people. Like
yes.
Avatar is a great example of this because, and mind you, I actually kind of have an appreciation for the Avatar movies. Like, I actually think
I know a lot.
they're solid.
Yeah.
They're not great, obviously, but like they're okay, fun enough movies to watch.
To the credit
The
of this, I know what you're about to discuss. I know some people out there who are like big fan of the Avatar films and don't see it from that perspective. So
Yeah, no,
I
no.
do
I'm
understand.
not saying you have to agree with this. I'm just saying one of the common critiques about Avatar is that like it's an example of this because the whole movie, like the movies are all about this like anti-colonial resistance, but the main character is a white person who just shows up, decides to assimilate into the group, and then becomes like their leading figure. And some interesting stuff is done with it, especially in the second movie, but like it's still kind of an example of that trope. I don't think Superman is an example of that trope. I mean, I guess you're free to disagree with me. Like, if you see it that way, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I just don't really, I just don't really view it that way personally. And I
Yeah,
think
I
there's
don't.
also an added dimension of like Superman himself in story kind of being like an immigrant and almost like, I mean, I
Yes.
know he's obviously like technically white, but um, he's definitely not like in story seen as like a fully I don't know, like there's a lot of like prejudice against him as a character. And we can't forget that he has like a long history of like being an immigrant and like having these immigrant
Yeah.
stories infused into his essence. Like his original
If
creators were
anything,
Jewish immigrants. In fact,
I was
Joe
about to say,
Shuster, who was
yeah.
one of them, was actually a Canadian, so we'll take that win. Um,
Nice.
there were also some Italian immigrants who developed some of his like early stories, and Italian immigrants did actually kind of face a lot of discrimination in like the 1900s because they weren't seen as like white enough, quote unquote. The same is true
Yeah.
of Jewish people to a massive extent, of course, because like I mean I don't have to explain this. I mean everyone
Right.
knows.
Yeah.
I mean I
I
guess not
agree. Yeah. And
everyone, but like I mean,
yeah,
you
a
know
lot
what
of
the fucking
people have.
Holocaust is, and like what like anti-Semitism is, and like the gentrification of like Jewish people and all that. That's, I mean, that's like, yeah, that's I think fairly known to people who study history. It's like,
Yes.
and by the way, David Cornsweet is a Jewish actor, I believe.
Oh, nice.
So there's that whole element to it. I don't really view Superman as like a privileged white man per se because he has all of these like aspects to his character that like make him almost an outsider to like humanity because of like the prejudice, even though of course he is human. Like he's as human as any
Yeah.
human. Um, you know, you know
Yeah.
how it is. I'm kind
Right.
of rambling here. I
It's
I
okay. Yeah,
love
I
the
get it.
immigrant aspect to his story, and I love that it's like, and I just love that he. I mean, I guess more broadly, I love that he cares so much about like stopping dictators. He's not just punching like bad guys in Metropolis. He's going over and helping people across the world. He's stopping wars, stopping genocides, frankly, because that was what
Right.
was going to happen. Um,
Yeah. And even if there are certain ways of looking at it and ways of how it could go wrong or go a different direction, I not only think it didn't go wrong at all in the context of the film, but it also, point is there's a lot of layers to this stuff. Like even if there's disagreements and like differing perspectives on it, I see that I see that as a good thing that
for sure.
everybody honestly, it's the double-edged sword of this movie that so many people have so many great differing perspectives on this film, but as a result, you get some perspectives that are really really I will say this. I would rather get into an argument with somebody about like Superman being like a white. I'd rather get into a white savior conversation regarding anything regarding the Jaron Purins and the Baravians in the Superman movie versus anyone who has been preying on this film's downfall solely out of a parasocial relationship to any of Snyder's work. Again, I don't hate Snyder or most of his work. I
Even
just
though Snyder and
like,
Gunn are friends, like,
even though they're friends, like it. Some people, it's like that meme of the guy with the backpack, and the text just says like let it go, man. It's over. Like
I
enough
know.
already.
Yeah.
But
Um,
the good
I guess I want to. Is there anything else you had to say there? I'm sorry.
I was just gonna mention, I will admit, while I'm obviously open to different opinions and disagreements, I will admit, coming out of the movie, I imagined myself like I kind of I had a smile on my face, and partly because I love the movie, but when I got home and I was still thinking about it, I had one point where I smiled, and it was because I was thinking of all the people who are probably bitter that many, myself included, consider Superman goated and that it's doing well. And I just heard like the trailer Superman music in my head, just kind of having a bit of a smug like who's laughing now moment. I'm not even gonna lie, because I think I needed this movie. Like this is one of these movies that
This is one of
I'm
the game-changing movies for me recently.
yeah, I'm so excited
And
to see.
speaking of the most impactful element of the movie for me, because we didn't touch on this up until now, I do want to talk a little bit more about Clark himself and about like his
Yes.
relationship with the Kents, if you would, if you wouldn't mind, because
Yeah,
I
if
love
it's
that
okay
part of
with
the
you,
movie.
honestly, if it's okay with you, I think that subject is the perfect thing to close out on as
A
we
hundred
come to the
percent.
end of this.
I
So
actually
yeah,
realized I didn't have to leave as early as I thought. Originally, this was going to be a bit of a shorter episode, but I found a workaround to that whole problem, so it's fine now. But
well,
we're
yeah,
still
with
probably going to wrap it up around, like, after we talk about the Kents. And, like, the
I agree.
Jor-El, and I forget Superman's mom's name, but, like, his Kryptonian parents, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's fair. But yeah, so yeah, all the stuff with Clark, I kind of alluded to some of the stuff that I gravitated toward earlier. We're talking about like his kindness and sincerity, and just the execution of his character. Um, but yeah, is there anything you would like to provide that I maybe didn't touch on or something?
Well, I guess I just love, I mean, I'll just start off by saying the scene with Pa Kent, talking to Clark. I do not usually tear up in movies. I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't usually tear up in movies. It takes a lot to get me to tear up in movies. That got me though. Like I was wiping my face.
Yeah,
And that
that
when they revisit it with like having Superman be like, play those clips of my parents. And instead of the
that
message from his Kryptonian parents, they just play like a bunch of clips of Ma and Pa Kent. I was like, holy shit, dude. I don't even
yeah,
know
that
that much about these characters, by the way. I
right.
don't know shit about the Kents, but they were so lovely in this movie. Like even
Yeah,
in
and
two scenes. I think maybe
it
three
was
scenes in total, but
yeah, that moment in the fortress really touched my heart. Like that was such a fun way. I really thought they were gonna pull something where, speaking of the message, I was fully expecting it that Lex Luthor was just bullshitting and taking the message out of context, and then Mr. Terrific would have called like son of a bitch, the guys I trusted were being paid, like that I believe could be trusted on this stuff, were being paid off by Luthor or being threatened by him or something this whole time. And we just didn't know it. But I gotta respect, they really committed to that message meaning what it does, at least for now. Like the message that they gave Clark, I found that interesting
I feel like
because
it's
it makes
better from a storytelling perspective if it actually was like intended, Because it means
yeah,
that Clark because here's the thing. Um I can see someone having the perspective if Clark had heard that entire message, he would grow up to be like a terrible person and like rule without mercy or whatever. I disagree actually because he was being raised by two absolutely like lovely and kind souls. I actually genuinely believe that even if Superman had heard that entire message, he would still grow up to be the person he was.
Yeah, I think so too. It's and I
Like,
also
and that's
love.
kind of what makes it so impactful for me because, like, you have this whole arc where he's like, holy shit, is the person I was this whole time alive? Like, I did
Yeah.
everything I do because of that message from my parents, but this is what they really wanted me to do. And I'm like,
Yes.
but I can't look at this man and think he would be doing anything differently no matter what he heard. Well, fuck, his parents could have said, we're sending you to Earth to get some sick ass pizza for Krypton, and he still would end up being a hero because of the Kents.
Right.
The Kents are, by
Yeah.
all means, his real parents.
Yes, for sure. And I'm very curious now because we know the Supergirl movie is coming out next year. Which, by the way, that end credit scene with Kara, that was or that bit with Kara, that was great.
Yeah, that
I
was
loved
funny.
that.
I love
I
the post credit scene where like Superman and
yeah.
Mr. Terrific have that banter, and he's just like, "Man, I can be such a dick sometimes."
Yeah, yeah, that was so good. And I love how much of a like I was discussing this with my family. We loved how much of a mess Supergirl looked like in just what 25 seconds. Like that actress is already looking great for the role. And learning that she is Crypto's owner was just like it all makes sense now.
No
It was
fucking,
so
yeah, no fucking shit.
it
Uh,
was so great. And but now I'm very curious about the implications of this for like Krypton stuff moving forward. Because if that was what like yeah, Superman's parents truly intended, I'm so curious to see how they flesh out Krypton as like a mythos in society because it
The thing
varies
is, my
across.
friend brought up that, like, from the perspective of the Kryptonians, they're probably not even sending Superman to do evil shit, because they do actually say at the beginning of the message, do good out there. I think from their warped perspective, like, Superman's parents genuinely believe what they instructed him to do would actually help the people of Earth, because it would make them safe and secure. Like,
Yeah,
that's kind of the perspective that the
it's
Viltrumites have to an extent in Invincible, although they're definitely very brutal about this. Um,
interesting.
they see it as a means to an end, especially like Omni-Man at the end of the first season. But the point I'm making is just like we don't really know what exactly that like whole thing looked to them from their perspective. My friend compared it to like because you know how Kryptonians are like so fucking like stronger than us. It's like my friend compared it to like an anthill. Like maybe it's like if someone told you to go do something to an anthill for the hill's own good. Like, sure, you'd be doing a lot of damage to the anthill, but like you're not thinking too much about that because you don't have any reason to see the ants as anything more than just ants. Whereas
Right.
if you're Superman and you are raised by ants for 30 years, and you live among the ants for 30 years, you see those ants as family. Now, maybe this isn't a great
Right.
one-to-one analogy because ants don't display like the same like level of consciousness or sapience as humans by a long shot, even though they do have a lot of fascinating traits. It's just the point is Superman is who he is and values what he values because of the people he's grown up around. I
Right.
think this is very, very, very easy to argue. And yeah, even if he'd seen the message in its entirety, I believe he'd still be a good, kind-hearted person.
Right. Yeah. And I'm really curious to see as well how this affects, like I said, with Supergirl, because typically the backstory with it is that like, Cal was still sent away from Krypton as a baby, but Kara was sent at the same time by like his like her parents. And sometimes it varies a bit differently. Sometimes like Kara gets stuck in the Phantom Zone, so she stays the same age while Superman ages before she gets out of it and comes to Earth. So I'm curious to see how that would link up timeline wise, but at the very least, I'm very excited to see what they do with Supergirl in this case with that implications of the message stuff. And obviously, I'm not trying to like distract from the movie. I agree with you. I thought that was a very compelling idea for Superman to face. I don't feel like I've seen that before with the Superman project yet in terms of like confronting Krypton's history beyond. I mean, obviously, Krypton's had like bad people. There was like the corruptive council that saw its destruction coming but did nothing. There's Brainiac, who's been especially now reinvented as like the Kryptonian AI that went amok. There's also, General Zod, who's like the definitive bad Kryptonian. But I think it was interesting to see. Honestly, oh my gosh, now I kind of wish. I know they've said on like multiple times that it's Matt Reeves' decision to make, and if he doesn't want it, that's fine. But now I kind of wish DCU, like Superman and Pattinson Batman, were in the same universe. Because if you recall, in the plot of the Batman, spoilers for the Batman, sorry. If you recall, a big part of that movie's plot was like Riddler exposing corruption connected to the Waynes, of how like Thomas Wayne covered stuff up for Martha, and even if it was out of love, it was still like connected to that stuff, and how he went to Carmine Falcone to scare that reporter to protect his mother, even though, or his wife, even though like he didn't know Falcone could have had the reporter killed. So like now we have two instances where Batman and Superman, both of their parents, like they misunderstood their journeys or their missions or parts of who they were, like their birth parents. And they go on to embrace the parents that truly have raised them since then in Alfred and the Kents. So like, man, a part of me really wishes they were in the same timeline right now. I think they'd work wonders together because they really have so much more in common despite their differences than I realize. But yeah, back to the Supergirl thing. We know the Supergirl movie is going to be adapting.
This reminds me of the fact that when we saw Clark Kent in I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to brush on this real quick. When Clark was revealed in Superman, a lot of people were making like jokes about how like he'd totally be in a yaoi relationship with Robert Pattinson's Batman. And look, I am a Superman and Lois truther, at least in this iteration. I love their chemistry. But like that is also a very fun idea.
Right. Like I'm not usually one to like break away into Superman shipping that goes beyond Superman and Lois, but I get why people do it, and if you have a love for the game, keep at it, I say.
Exactly. I can see the vision. I can see the vision. I just
I see it as
I mean,
well.
I just love I mean, I guess a polycule is technically an option, but I mean, I just love Superman and Lois's chemistry in this movie. It's like
I do get the appeal. One of my favorite I've watched one of the animated movies that exists for DC is called it's called Superman and Batman Public Enemies. The whole plot of the film is basically like Lex Luthor frames Superman and Batman for something. And so they become public enemies who are being hunted down by both supervillains for hire and Justice League members. There's also Amanda Waller in there. And during the final battle, Batman decides to make like a self-sacrificing choice to stop Luthor's scheme. And so at one point during the climax, Luthor's got like his green and purple power suit, and he's just gone off the deep end trying to fight Superman. But Superman catches one of his punches and then effortlessly like crunches up or damages the robotic fist. He looks at Luthor just saying, "That was my best friend." You see Luthor's like the fear in his eyes, and then you just hear Superman go, "And you just killed him," before he starts punching the hell out of him. Like that is one of my favorite Superman moments in anything animated. So I totally see the appeal of. I totally get why
that sounds awesome.
It's a really good movie. I will admit, it's not perfect. It has some weird choices. I think a little bit more runtime could have helped it. There's definitely some odd choices where I'm like, okay, what the fuck? But it's got some great moments. So I highly recommend, Superman and Batman Public Enemies. It's a good movie. I have to check out Superman versus the Elite. That's another animated movie that like really gets at the core of what Superman's about. And I've heard nothing but praise for it. So yeah, but yeah, with the Supergirl movie, we know it's based on the book Woman of Tomorrow. And I actually have read Woman of Tomorrow. I own it physically. It's a good book. I don't think I loved it as much as I didn't love it like I was expecting, but I do really like it. At the very least, it has some gorgeous artwork. Like I really hope they get the cinematographer. Well, maybe they already shot it, so I don't know for sure. I really hope they go nuts with the colors, like Guardians Volume 2 type colors. Like that's what the book has in terms of visuals. and I really want to see that translated on screen. But the premise of Woman of Tomorrow is basically Supergirl. The plot follows Supergirl helping this alien child, or this alien girl, get revenge on the man who killed her father. And they basically have a whole like planet wide, like galaxy wide adventure of her just helping her go after this psychopath named like Crim of the Yellow Hills or something. And the guy's a monster. He's like a genocidal killer. He's a hunter. He hurts Crypto, so that further like emboldens Supergirl to join this girl on her quest. It's a good book. I'm very curious to see how they adapt it. But that makes me wonder of like if Kara was older than Clark, if like Clark was still a baby, but Kara was an older kid when Krypton exploded, before there was a differentiation between how they aged. I'm very interested to see like how Kryptonian values, like how they reflect her in this case. Because Kara's described as like a mess who doesn't care, obviously, by that credit scene. I love the bit where Superman says like she gets drunk on red sun planets. Like that was a great line. But I'm so curious to see what kind of Kryptonian values she grew up with or how she ignored them, because clearly she's not out to conquer Earth. She's cool with humans. So it makes me wonder how like if the House of L did view like sending Clark to Earth as the right thing to do, but also in a warped, twisted way. It makes me wonder what values Kara has as a person in terms of her view on Earth and her perspective on stuff. Or maybe she doesn't even like Earth. Maybe her being off-world is connected to that. I don't know. I really like the implications of all the stuff they did with the storytelling. And I'm very excited. I think, yeah, what they did with Clark was just fantastic in this film. They really got a version of the character that I'm so happy represents not only Superman, but I also see myself in. And yeah, that struggle of like, this is what I was trying to do the whole time, and I just wanted to do something good, and you're telling me it's tied up in all this like these things I don't believe in. I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially now in a culture where there's so many people who like we thought of them as one way, but then it turns out something comes out, and it's just not that they're just not who they said they were. So I understand, and like this idea of like how much, I don't know. I'm stumbling a bit and losing myself in my words, but yeah, I agree. I think the story is made stronger by not like just playing that straight for now. At least that Clark's parents did genuinely like think of him doing certain things to Earth in terms of how he interacted with people. Like I think that is a very compelling element of his character. And I also loved how he showcased, like, it still showcased the Superman having like emotional outbursts. Like when he found out Lex took Crypto, and then he rushed to the Luthor Corps building. And he was still able to, like, he was trying to keep his cool and not just throw Luthor out of building. But Luthor was able to manipulate the situation and practically play him
I
like a
love
fool.
I love how he only snapped at Luthor after
Yeah,
like Luthor hurt the dog. Not his dog, but you know, the dog. Hurt
yeah,
Crypto. Like he kept his cool when his entire reputation was destroyed, where everything he built for the past 3 years was like thrown out the window. But once he fucked with the dog, then he was gonna throw
yeah.
hands.
Yeah, that was good. That was really great stuff. It was so personal and real.
I love
Speaking
the
of, by the way,
line where he's just like, look, he's scared and he's alone, and someone needs to be there for him. Like that's so
yeah,
heartfelt and just genuine. It's like,
yeah, I especially love how he's like, look, he's not even he may not even be a good dog, but he needs my help. Like that was so perfect. And speaking as somebody who has had to deal with puppy bites and roughhousing from a dog, it speaks very much to the dog owner in me. It's yeah, everything they did with Crypto was great in this movie. Speaking of, by the way, I know we haven't commented on this much. The CGI was great. Like the visual effects
yeah,
were
I
fantastic.
agree.
Crypto Crypto looked about as real as you can get with this kind of animal. I thought it was animated perfectly. There were only a few shots where I was like, oh yeah, that green screen is a little bit noticeable. There was like one shot of Guy in the air I thought was a little like I could see some of the keying. But but it was still like I don't even care at that point. Like, oh no, a little bit of green screen on a flying scene. I don't give a shit. Like, it's a superhero movie. I don't fucking care. Especially when the rest of it looks so good, and a lot of really good practical stuff, especially with the costumes. Like
Real.
I still love the way they did like fucking Mr. Terrific's like the T on his face. It would have been so easy to just make that like black face paint. I don't know how much of a pain in the ass that would have been, but they had it like this almost protective part of him where like his lips were still able to move with it, and it like went down past them to his chin, but there was black face paint to connect it. It was just such a cool way of visualizing that. And every character still had something about their design that helped them stand out, even when they had similar clothes on the Justice Gang, like with Guy in his ring and bowl cut, and Hawkgirl with her helmet and wings. It was just awesome. So yeah, the visual effects in this movie were great. Is there anything else you'd like to say about Clark? I think I'm basically like
No, I
I've
think I
spoken.
think I got all of it. Like, and all of the other stuff
Okay.
in the movie. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, yeah. Point is, yeah, I'm basically ready to wrap it up. I've got not much else to say other than
That was just
I
almost
agree.
3 solid hours of glazing.
Yeah, this movie, we both think it's great. We both love what it does. Maybe, and look, you don't have to agree with us, of course. I'm sure there'll be some perspectives where it's like, okay, yeah, I understand that. And I will say, as much as I love this movie, it's still not my favorite James Gunn superhero thing. That is still definitely one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies at minimum. If not all three Guardians movies because of my attachments to them, at the very least, Volume 3 is still my favorite James Gunn anything now. But honestly, I genuinely wonder if Peacemaker season 2 is fire, then I might have a competition for my favorite James Gunn thing this year. But still, like, I think that this is a fantastic movie. It is an excellent beginning to the DCU. I think Creature Commandos, as the technical start, it's very good. It's not the best James Gunn thing. In fact, I still think Peacemaker is the better DC show comparing the two. But for the official start of the DCU in the movies, Superman is amazing. I'm so excited for the rest of the DCU. I can't wait for next year with Supergirl, Clayface, and Lanterns. I hope the Batman and Wonder Woman movies are just as good as good as this. I know that Batman movie. I'm very curious about it because it's going to be called Brave and the Bold, and it's going to be about Batman and Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne is not the first Robin, but he is a very interesting character that I quite like from what I've seen of him in animated stuff. So I'm really excited to see how James Gunn's take on a more lived in DCU Batman. And I just fucking hope Wonder Woman gets something cool. Like, again, I'm not even the biggest Wonder Woman fan compared to these other two, but I've really grown to appreciate the character more, seeing different takes. And I just hope she gets something as good as this movie. Same as Supergirl and all the other DC characters. I
A
hope
hundred percent, a
I'm
hundred percent. And I'll say this as someone who hasn't
yeah,
really been into the DCEU because of the DCEU. I
right.
This movie single-handedly made me want to see more of this universe and these characters,
Yeah. I
without a doubt.
and even as somebody who already had a lot of hype for it, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm even more on board now." I was already on the hype train, but now I am firmly dining in the quiet car of it. Like, this is just great stuff. Um but yeah, point is, Superman's Peak, I highly recommend it if you're a DC fan or just looking for a good superhero movie. Honestly, I don't know which one I'm gonna like more in the long run, Thunderbolts or Superman. I don't know which one of them is gonna be my favorite of the year. I will say, I will say as well, I do think Fantastic Four looks good. I just personally don't know if I'm gonna like it as much as Superman and
I think Superman might be above
Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts for me, although I do love Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna have to depend on like the rewatches for me later on. Like, because that's
Yeah,
what
you're
helps a
right.
lot of these movies. But yeah, I am. I got nothing else to say. I love
I
Superman, and
think
I'm
the
ready
thing
for
is
more.
with Thunderbolts, I can point to like significant flaws in the movie where I have less of that for Superman. It's like I like Thunderbolts a lot. I love it even, but like the way they use Taskmaster is kind of lame, and that's like one of the like I guess semi big characters. And there's nothing on that level of like gripe in Superman. And I don't know, like there's something so special about like Superman and like the DC universe we're seeing with all this color and like comic booky feel. It's like, yeah, Thunderbolts is also a great movie that I love, but I think Superman might have the slight edge for me, but that might just be recency bias. I'll have to think
Yeah,
about it.
that's fair. Yeah, it's. I'll just have to see. Like I just said, I'll just see where it goes from here.
It's so nice to actually be able to be excited for superhero movies again. I feel like I've been in this like mindset of like not really being too overwhelmed with some of the Marvel stuff and also too lost in the sauce with some of the discourse. It's like
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nice to see some unambiguously good movies again from the comic book genre.
Yeah, and I will say honestly, as one last kind of, this is not to like randomly slap Marvel in the face or anything, but I will say, look, even though I have more faith in it than I did previously, and I'm sure I'll be excited about it when it gets hyped up, I'm still worried about Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. I'm very worried about how those films are going to be executed, given like all the elements that they have to tie together for those films. I do want them to be good movies. I don't want them to fail, but I also like it's just not the same as it used to be with like Infinity War and Endgame and the feeling of hype for those. So all I'm going to say is this: in
That's a
the event
cultural
that
moment I'm just not sure can ever be recreated.
yeah, so in the event I don't want them to, but in the event that Doomsday and Secret Wars are ass or one of them is ass, then in my mind I'm like, you know what? We still got Superman, and even if this is like a bit
It
of
might be
a even
DC's
if
time to
Mark
shine now. Who knows?
yeah, honestly, I want them both to shine, but I would not be
Well,
against
obviously, me too.
DC.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not against DC taking a bit more of the spotlight for now because they've proven they've got their shit together with Gunn at the helm. And I firmly believe that for at least the next 10 years, we're in for some incredible adventures in the DC universe. So,
Yeah, just
yeah,
just get just get David Zaslav out of there, please.
exactly.
Fuck that guy.
Yes. And on
That's
that
probably a
note, I
good
think
part to
that's
end.
yeah, fuck David Zaslav, and that's gonna do it for this video, or podcast or whatever. But yeah, all right.
Also,
It's
fuck
been great
Israel
talking.
and fuck
Yeah,
Netanyahu.
yeah fuck
That
Netanyahu at
too.
the bare minimum. Yes. And on that note, I think I'm gonna head out if that's okay with you. Um, like
Yeah.
I've already,
All
like I've
right.
kind of
Yeah, that's
already,
good. This
yeah,
was a good one.
yeah. Follow Noah, on his platforms and shit. Go to my channel and follow mine or whatever. I don't even need to plug. Like I'm just happy to talk about Superman. So yeah, I'm
I'll
just
leave all
gonna.
your stuff in the description. You don't have to worry about it. It's called Elephant Power Productions, though, in case anyone missed it.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah, it's a little confusing. So the at is Elephant Power Productions. That still stayed the same, but the technical name right now is American Elephant. I was recommended to switch to that actually by my teacher because I actually did like a brand building exercise in my class where I finally like connected like my personal YouTube stuff and my academic stuff toward the end of college. And my teacher recommended like, yeah, keep going with this. Maybe change the name though for a little more consistency. Because to be fair, like people will like, even if people know it's the channel, they probably want to go to that name, like the name, like, oh, look up American Elephant on YouTube. And even if my channel did pop up, might as well have it directly in the name. But
You
yeah,
know,
the at is
you can actually change the at in your channel settings if you want to do that.
interesting. Well, yeah, I'll see how I feel about it. I've tampered with the idea of like make a second American Elephant channel for personal stuff, but then or like name this one American Elephant for personal stuff, but then switch to Elephant Power Productions when I like try to make my cartoons and such. Um, but yeah,
Oh yeah, that might be a good idea. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna head out. Be kind to each other. And you know what? I'm gonna end before I head out. I'm gonna end on one of my favorite quotes from this movie because it's actually available here right now on the DCU Wiki's Superman page. It's Superman saying, "That is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone. I get scared. I wake up every morning, and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other and try to make the best choice the best choices I can. I screw up all the time, but that is being human, and that's my greatest strength. And someday, I hope for the sake of the world, you understand that it's yours too." So, yeah, on that mic
Banger
drop,
fucking quote.
goodbye.
Bye.